Green? That's even better.
Sorry.
All right. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Brushes of Doom podcast, also known as the BODP, Between Them Cheeks. I am your host, X. Welcome to this episode. I have one of my great friends and brothers, somebody that I absolutely love and adore. Dude is probably one of my favorite people of all time. I have talked about him countless of times. I have actually had him on a podcast quite a few years ago when he had just settled down into the new shop that he had, and you were coming back from Las Vegas. Shout out to our brother Tony. When unfortunately his flight got canceled, this was going to be a Sanctorum session / master pod just to go over stuff, but he will be coming back in a month or two to sit down. So in lieu of that, without any further ado, Joseph Cabello.
Thanks. Thank you for that intro.
I know. How you doing, brother?
Appreciate it.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. Doing good. Just got my liquids rolling.
Man of many words.
Yes, sir.
All right, so you just came back from, for anyone that doesn't know Joseph, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Joseph Cabello. I'm from Tulare, California. I own and I'm a tattooer at Body Art Gallery. I've been a shop owner for 7 years now, I think. I've been tattooing 16 years. And I am obsessed with tattooing. super into it.
What got you into tattooing? Because we talked about it when you had like Samara and Eddie on the pod, but like one-on-one now. What really got you into tattooing? Because you, when you were younger, you were doing semi-professional wrestling. You were the John Cena of Tulare. And you were doing graffiti. You were doing a bunch of stuff. But like, what actually got you into tattooing?
I think the main thing that got me into it was just like I really was horrible at it. I was so horrible at it, and it just made me so frustrated that I just could not do it.
Right.
Because I had gotten my first tattoo at Cow Palace at the Body Art Expo in like 2007.
SF?
Yeah. And then my homie now, Angel Silva, he was my first artist. He was like a year and a half in. And the process was just cool. Like back then it was like kind of crazy, the scene was nuts and just, I don't know, it was really different to see that compared to like what I knew from Tulare. And then me and him drew up a design together and we collabed on that, and then he just like popped me up and gave me a big ass tattoo for hella cheap. So I was like, after that I was hooked. I'm super grateful to him too, because he kind of showed me more or less how to like set up the machine, and back then there was like little to no access to any information at all.
Right. And
then I think like a month after I got that tattoo, I ordered a kit from like Element, and then like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, like
did you get the original? You remember the old the guide to building your dime versus nickels? You remember the machine books?
No, I didn't get that.
I had to get that one and had to read it back to front. And a dime was for liners, and a nickel space in the armature bar was for shaders. I read that backwards of my dyslexia, so I was tuning everyone's machines, and they're like, "Why the fuck is my tattooing coming out whack?" And I was like, "Maybe you suck, bro." Yeah, that didn't go very well for my first apprenticeship.
I didn't get any tattoo books until like I think I was like 5 or 6 years in. I got that book, Tattoo Machines and Their Secrets.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the nickel and dime book is what they used to call it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, I remember at the end of that, the person writes about like making frames out of wood. Yes. It's like, that's like crazy. But it works, Yeah. But once I got the kit, it was like a month later, I started tattooing, and I could draw, I could paint, or I felt like I could at that time. I was like kind of a fucking dick, I thought I was really good, and then everything I did just turned out like shit for probably like a good like 3 years. And it was like the most frustrating thing I'd ever experienced.
So we were talking before, like waiting for the pod to start, and I think like the beautiful thing about our relationship as peers, brothers, friends, everything, is the fact that there doesn't need to be like an interview format, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what originally attracted me to like how you learn when we first met each other was like your brutal honesty. And if anyone can admit how we are with people, we're very blunt with how we are. What was it like for you in a tattoo setting once you started getting into shops? You called yourself what of the kitchen? The
kitchen wizard?
The kitchen wizard, my man. Where do you think, like when you started on your own versus actually in a shop, where were the changes and like the stuff that you grew up on? Because I feel like when we were coming up, it was a very aggressive, like, anxiety is the number one thing that a tattoo apprentice can have to make you a real tattoo apprentice.
Yeah, and then I didn't even know about anxiety back then. I was just like, oh, I'm tired and I feel like killing myself.
This isn't normal. It is now, buddy.
Well, I mean, like Lincoln Park, I was like, fuck. It seems like everyone's going through this shit, but yeah, like it's stressful, dude.
Your Mike Shinoda phase. Or
but I don't know. It was just like, it was completely I mean, going from the house to the shop was already a huge eye opener. Like, cause I thought I knew about tattooing. I mean, back then it was MySpace and Tattoo Magazine. I don't know if like I had seen any inked magazines, but I know do you remember the little one, like just Tattoo Magazine?
Oh yeah. I have a whole bunch of them in the front.
That was like the only real way to see tattoos, and then MySpace started popping up. I remember I followed a bunch of like famous tattooers I didn't know were famous. I was just like, oh, these tattoos look cool. And then once I got into a shop, then I was like educated on like what tattoo or what their perception of tattooing was, or like what the industry is and all that kind of stuff. And it's just always been like really fascinating. And I did understand that like working out of the house, you kind of don't get to be a part of the community. And at that time I really was just like, whoa, like this is so sick, like there's just a lot of cool shit happening.
Yeah, I remember because growing up around tattoo shops and being like introduced to them very early, there was this like air about them of how you'd get in there and it was like very rough and gruff. It's called the Halling and Kruger effect, of how we as artists see something and then we get good at one thing. So let's just say lettering, for an example. I can draw a really nice A, and all of a sudden your confidence goes high. That's the Halling effect. And then all of a sudden you're like, I am the shit. Bring any A to me and I shall fucking crush its puss. And you're like, let's not word it that way. And then you go, okay, well, do a B. Well, I mean, I could do an A. No. But my name starts with B. Well, it better be for bitch because I ain't doing a B. And that's the Kruger effect, which is called the Valley of Despair. You hit this thing of where you think you're really great and then you realize you're not. And it goes into about a 10-year deficiency of where we really are just the hardest on ourselves about things. And then one day, fucking something just fucking snaps in your head and you're like, oh, I get it. I fucking get it. How didn't I get it before? That is a huge thing that artists go through that I feel like they don't talk about enough because, like you said, the anxiety of not just doing well, but having to perform around other people. When I was growing up around tattoo shops, there was this guy named Chris who was tattooing fucking 14, 15-year-olds. I was one of those. And I couldn't draw. I had no context. I had no art literacy in my head that I could tell what was good and not. So these whack ass fucking scratcher things he was doing, I was like, that shit goes hard, homie. Oh fuck, is that black flames? I can also do them in red. You know what I mean? Like I was blown away by this dude. And then you get enough years into something, and I've seen that dude's work over the past few years. And unfortunately, guy has been through some rough times and whatnot, but like he never got better. And like you said, growing up in a shop, it's rough. Growing outside of a shop is rough because you can only get as good as you allow yourself to be. Yeah. So like when you started getting into a shop, how was the environment so much different from like, again, the Halling effect? I'm good to an extent, and then you get to a real shop with a real artist and you're like, oh fuck. And then it just goes to that valley of despair. How hard was that for you?
I think I was ready at that time to feel that. But I know the first year of just like putting or trying to put ink in the skin or having it like I draw the design, I make the stencil and then I tattoo it looks nothing like my drawing. That was like the worst thing ever. And then whenever I did get into a shop, I wasn't really in like a great place, so I already hated myself. So it's like when I got around like artists that were like just killing it, I was like, oh yeah, dude, like of course.
Yeah,
I was ready to be shit on like crazy. Like I wanted, I was like, dude, I need to know all, because I didn't know anything, and I knew I didn't know anything, and I was just hitting a wall for like 2 years. I was looking for an apprenticeship for like a year and a half or 2 years.
Right. When did what got you your apprenticeship?
Actually, funny story. Now that you mention it, nah, just kidding. I had walked around and like taking the bus like all over LA, and I'd even asked for apprenticeships in like Tulare and Visalia, and nothing for a long time. And then I was living in Culver City, and there was this dude. I can't even remember his name. I think his name was Corgi, but I think the shop was Evermore or something. It was in Culver City. It was like next to the 99-cent store.
No, I remember exactly where that was.
Okay, so homeboy was just about to open up a shop, and I had my list of shops that I was going to hit, and I happened to just go into his shop because I hadn't seen it, and then I just went in there, and like it was around the bus stop. So he looked at my portfolio, and he just told me like, okay, do you really want to do this? And I was like, yes, I really want to do this. And he's like, okay, all these tattoos, throw them out. They suck. Don't tell anybody that you tattoo. Your artwork looks good, so just use that, but don't tell anybody you tattoo because your tattoos are really horrible. And I was just like, fuck, dude. I was like, because I had like my best tattoos in there at the time. And I was like, I thought they were like really good. They're not. But, like,
but that's that Howling effect, right? Where like at that time, you read at a second grade level. So the fact that you knew words in a third grade book, you were like, holler at your boy.
I was like, dude, I know conjunction.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function, motherfucker? He's like, I know Schoolhouse Rock, you piece of shit.
So anyways, it was tight because that fool said that his homie was opening up a shop, which was Mike Cho from Oceanfront.
Yeah.
And he was like, they're looking for an apprentice, so definitely don't show him your tattoos, just show him your art. And then he's like, I'm gonna hit him up, just tell him that I sent you. And I went like literally right afterwards, and like I went in, and I still remember too, I was like so nervous, dude. I was like, man, because I went in and they just had hella paintings everywhere. And I was just like, oh shit, because most of the shops I had went into had Flash, which like now I'm like a huge fan of Flash, but at that time I was like looking, I was like, oh, I'm an artist, and I was like, oh, they got an art, like, but I love Flash now, so like mindsets have definitely changed a lot. But I remember it was Mike and Twist, and they came up, they looked at the portfolio, and Mike, he was just like, all right, bro, like this looks all right, is it cool if I hold your portfolio? And I was like, in my head, I was like, fuck. That was like $20, dude. Like, I'm not going to be able to go into any more shops anymore because I don't have like money to print another one.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I just like, go for it. And then I just went home, but I had a whole list of shops that I was going to hit.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. Okay. And then they never hit me up. I think it was like.
You ever got your portfolio back?
I did, like a month later, though.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when he finally called, and he was like, hey, like, why don't you come kick it? And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
And then I like hung up, and I'm like, I was so hyped. It was, I was so excited.
The crazy thing about, I think, with the idea of getting into tattoo shops is that when I was getting into one, I just happened to know R.C. Kelly. And so my cousin was friends with him, and he did a tattoo on me, and he was like, you're 18, right? And I was like, actually, because you're 18, that's cool. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm 18. But they started being like, hey, man, if you come and help out with needles and inks and stuff, like, we'll give you some cash. And I was like, fuck it, I'll go. So 14 fucking mile bike ride from my hometown to that one on the back roads with tractors and shit. But like, I felt like I could do it, right? And I was like, man, this is cool. And I was in the opposite effect, where when I was around it, so back in the day, Kingpin used to do you remember when they would pay for flash sheets?
No.
Okay. So Kingpin, for anyone that is like a newer tattooer, they don't know, they are a tattoo distributor, and them, Cam, and there was one other one, which is like American Supply, would have, if you paint Flash, we'll give you $250.
Oh shit!
For the release. So you owed them a line sheet clean. It could not be some bullshit. And then you owed them a color rendition or black and gray rendition. But they got to print it as much as they wanted. And they would sell you the racks of the pick'em and stick'ems for $4,000, $2,000. So that's how they were able to buy people out. And so, but they would limit you to 10 per artist. So he started making names like Dixon Butts and Cleaver McCleaverson, Big Muff McGruff, and just send them in. And he probably cashed in almost like 1,500 pieces of Flash, like sheets, times 250 a sheet.
Damn.
And homie made a fucking killing. So 90% of a lot of early neo-traditional stuff comes from RC. So this dude was fucking smart. But
what time period was this? Like
2001 to 2005.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I was hanging around the shop around like 2002, 2003, and I was barely in high school. And I just remember like RC's whole thing was, what are you doing right now? Fucking nothing. He goes, okay, paint. Do this, paint. My idea of art was bangers. Nothing could be bigger than a palm-sized thing, but that's how it was. So when you started getting into a shop aesthetic, I remember when I actually applied to be like, hey, would you hire me aside from a shop bitch? Cool. Hang around for 7 months. And I showed up to work every day to sit at a counter and not talk. They would not talk to me.
Oh, man. And was that to be a piercer or? No,
I just to have a shot at the shop because especially around here, we only had 6 or 7 shops. And Morris Bravo, he was like, hey, man, do you know how to trace? And I go, not really. So he showed me how to trace on a light box. So I did a Frankenstein. And it was like meticulous because I was like, well, I got to impress him. They had a guy named Tony at the time, and poor fucking dude was just not good at the time. And they were like, hey, Tony, look at this kid's work. We found your replacement. And fucking dude would always stand with his hands behind his back and he was sweating. So anytime I came around, he fucking hated me. Because he was like, yeah, dude, we found your replacement. You're fucking whack, fool. This kid ain't whack. There's hope for him. If you kill yourself, you'll probably botch that too. I'm like, and I'm there, and I have nothing against the guy, you know. So that was like the environment that I had kind of grown up in. He eventually gave up, and he moved and he sold everything.
Oh man,
here we are, 17 years later, like 16, 17 years later, and he ended up getting out of the military. And I still talk to Tony. He went to an art school in, I believe, in Arizona, and he graduated with his degree. And the dude actually fucking draws very well. He's never lost that bug, but he had the fear of not knowing how to draw and didn't have the right mentors. That's why, like, when you were talking about the whole thing of, I fucking hated Flash for the longest time because I grew up around it, so I was tired of it. You know, Japanese, same thing. And fucking if I see another goddamn koi fish. And here we are in our older years where we've been doing it since we were young. So now we're the old farts. And we're not even that fucking old. But how much more you appreciate. You're on a Japanese kick right now. And I'm on a bodysuit kick where we're going back to roots. Because I didn't have the literacy to appreciate where we came from. It's like being a kid with your parent, right? Your dad's like, or your mom is like, you know what, dude, you're not gonna appreciate this shit. You don't know anything. Fuck you, old man. You don't know shit. And then
fuck you, old man.
Yeah, exactly. And then now here we are, and the smallest things that they told you about, you take more time with them.
Yeah, it matters, and you can see it too. And then tattooing, it's like, I don't know, it's like a bunch of people doing these fucking things, these little hat tricks, you know. So I think realism at first was the thing. I was like, oh my god, you know. But you don't like. I didn't even have an interest really in the history of things,
right?
You know. And then once you get like really deep and you start learning, it's like, oh shit.
I remember when they had a Philip Liu book, and one of the legends of tattooing, let alone in Japanese, and the way he talks about it when he was on the Books Closed.
Oh my god,
when,
dude!
When he talks about pulling a line, and then you get in the line and you get that just. And even the motion of his hand, if you've been tattooing a long time, you're like,
you know what it is.
I know what that fucking is. And it's such a true statement. And you can tell the dude has love for the craft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you find that? You earn it.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy part is I remember seeing one of his books coming up, and I was like, who is this old fuck? And now it was either that or the Rick Walters hates you stickers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting down like years later, getting one of his books from Taki over at State of Grace and just mulling over it. Taki was one of the biggest things for me coming up, where he had talked about, he has this one book in his library. He has a very specific room that he has his stuff with Horitomo. And it's a book from 1786. It's a fucking gorgeous book. And it's a real history book of the clans and the families in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you want to know what I hate about Japanese tattooers sometimes, man? Is that people that imitate it and don't respect the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'll give you a good example. He brought up the Cow Palace stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This guy will execute a beautiful piece. Everything is technically perfect. The line weight is crisp. The fucking packing is solid. The gray shading's there.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes, you're a storyteller. Why don't you know the story? Each thing in Japanese, for the most part, when they're samurais or jin or gojin, any kind of stuff like that, is real.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, why did Mashimoto... Why does he have a helmet on with that family crest? That
Mm-hmm.
family's from 300 years later. It took place in fall. Why are all your colors summer?
Mm-hmm.
And he had a boat oar. Why does he have a sword?
Mm.
Because some asshole was like, can you get this guy with the fucking sword and make sure it better be during fucking July? I'll know if it's June.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, it's really hard because you're seeing somebody not appreciate what it really comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic art is the same way. When you look at like Frida or you look at Gustavo or any of these guys, most colors that come from Mexico or South America, because of the high dry climates they have, are pastels or they're opaques.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're made from natural minerals. So all of the colors in a true Hispanic Azteca piece or in a black and gray piece come with a very gray base. And so they become chalkier, and that's what we recognize as legitimacy. So it's crazy when you first start, you don't have the age literacy or you don't have the knowledge to look at something and say, that's fucking dope. You just like, is that cool or not?
Yeah.
When Nico came out with his Day of the Dead portrait shit,
Oh yeah.
holy fuck.
Yeah, everyone was like, "Oh, fuck."
That was my fucking nightmare from 2004 to 2008.
Mm-hmm.
All the fucking, all the hood rat chicks, dude, that I grew up with, and they were in their fucking Jesus non-ho phase, were like, okay, but like for real? Like it's gonna be a portrait with like the spider webs, but like it's for me. Okay. But I want it in like color with roses and a pistol. But I want praying hands too, motherfucker. And then like they would get the same shit, and everything was Dia de los Muertos. And color lines versus no color lines. You know, having the discussion between like, well, does she have blonde hair, white hair? Is white ink gonna hold? There was a lot of conversation happening about technique, but none happening about
Culture.
And the people that when Fred Flores was coming out, or Pete the Thief and all these bad motherfuckers, most of them that were imitating people were people from the Pinta or people from down south, from Negrete and fucking Bajorquez and those guys that were like, that dude's dope. Why is he dope? Because that motherfucker lives the life. There's nothing that you can quantify outside of culture. So it's funny that like, what age do you think you started getting more awareness or literacy of like culture versus actual like craftsmanship?
I think there was different time periods. It was like every maybe 4 years I'll just pick something up, like because I'll just have my head down so long, and then I'll have somebody like kind of tell me something, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, like I didn't even think about that because I'm just drawing stuff, you know. Well, he just rizzed all over me, and now I'm feeling the effects, you know what I mean? It changed my life. But I mean, working, I know the last like handful of years I was working with Zeke Gomez, and he's just like so into his culture as it is. It's just like contagious, you know? And then like learning about myself, learning about like my parents, my dad and his like biological parents, and then his adopted family parents, like learning where they come from, and then learning where my grandparents from my mom's side comes from, you know, and then diving into that rabbit hole, and then, you know, this is all like fairly recently, you know, and I've been tattooing for 16 years, so it's like the last like half decade is when I really started needing to like dive deeper into that part, and like feeling like that's more important too. I think the last 5 years there's been so many younger artists coming in, and they're just like copying what's cool, and then I think that made me feel like, well, if I don't want to do that, because I don't want to like criticize them and then me do the same shit, you know. And like I do, I think somebody called me an OG one time, and I was like, I'm not a fucking OG, but like then I was thinking about what I was saying and talking about, like, you know, West Coast black and gray versus East Coast black and gray. Absolutely, and then different. Talking about washes and the smooth shading, and it's like a lot of I've been traveling to like the Midwest area a lot more, and like their black and gray is definitely different than ours, but ours does come from like the prisons, and it comes like there's the whole culture of like the 90s and early 2000s of like West Coast black and gray. It's like that smooth shading, almost looking like an airbrush. Yeah. An airbrush and like big pen art. That's a big part of our culture. Yeah. And so for me, like, I'm like seeing these artists tattoo with like opaques or whitewash, and it creates a cool tattoo, but right. I like that I just use water and ink because it does have like a history with it, and it feels better, you know, and it almost like makes the storytelling part of it, and that's like a big aspect of tattooing that I feel like it's good to like pass on, or at least like, hey, this is why I do it. Like this might give me a better picture or whatever, but this has like something attached to it. There's lineage to it, you know. My OGs did this, and then their OGs did that, and it's like something that's passed on. You know? It's
a rite of passage. Mm-hmm. You and I share a mentor. Good old Tony. Tony with a Y. What was Tony like for you when you first came up? Because, and just to get to my point, like, I think we got him at the same time, but at two different places. Mm-hmm. What was Tony like for you?
I don't want to like ride this fool's nuts too much, but like when that fool was at the beach, man, like I had never seen somebody tattoo in person like that. Like he was just in his bag, and like I looked up to him like crazy. I just watched him tattoo so much, and then he was just doing crazy shit. Like he just like only had black and water, and that's like something, you know, that's like a traditional style or like an old school style of tattooing.
Fucking 25 mag.
Yeah, 25 mag and a 5-liner.
Yeah, and to pull like I remember him pulling a single line, and he goes, "Check this out, Playboy," and he would stick it out, and then the cleanest, like the Philip Blue thing, the cleanest line, and then he would go, "Yeah, baby, come on, baby, come on," and I'm sitting the entire time, I'm all, "Yes, babe." Baby.
He's like, "You deserve that, king. Take that." Nah, I was just kidding. Nah, but yeah, Tony was just a magician, dude. I would just watch him do stuff, and I was like, this is like incredible. Like there's one portrait that he did that I used to brag about, like setting up and breaking down for him. Like my friends would see his picture and was like, "Dude, I set up for that. I broke him down during that shit." And it's like if I did that shit.
You were fucking like Caddyshack. You were the actual caddy guy. You're all that fool who hits balls. I carry his balls.
With pride.
Yeah, with Riz.
But there's this one that he did that's like a female with like a ponytail, and it's like a profile. Yeah. And I think he even signed it. It was like some lady had traveled to get it. She got 2 portraits, I think, in one day or back to back. I can't remember. But the first portrait, like there's a really clean blend on the cheek. And I remember watching him do it. And he has this 25 mag. And he just like, it's all just like I think Franco called it like organic give, where it's just all his hand in like black ink. And he just like shovels it deep. And it's just like solid black, and then he's like lifting up, but you can't tell unless like you're right there seeing it. And then like the whole cheek just has this gradient from like start to finish, from like 0 or like 100% to like 0 in like 2 motions. Yeah. And I was just like, what the fuck, dude?
Bruja. When I got Tony was very exuberant. He was an extremely festive man. But no, genuinely, like Tony was one of the nicest guys. I was living at the shop at the time in LA, and I just remember that he was. I had got my arches pads. I had never known how much those things were, because some guy would always come to the back door and he'd be like, I got art supplies. My company's overstocked. I'm all, really? Out of that fucking little Isuzu Toyota truck? And he's like, yeah, bro. All things must go, $10. So I was getting like all these supplies for super cheap off of a back of a truck. And I remember Tony being just like, you got to get this, you got to get that. And I was like very proud that this dude took interest in me, because everyone else was like, just let him be in the back. And I remember it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter specifically, where he was at the shop. He had forgotten something, and he was like, hey, you don't got a family to go home to? I was like, nah, I live here, man. I'm just by myself. And he goes, fuck that shit, fool. He sets up one of his paintings, and he's like, come on, we're going to paint with each other. Let's go. He spent, like, for a good 2 years, he spent every holiday with me painting and sitting there just to be like, I don't want you to be alone, dude, but I don't need you to waste your time either. Like, he was never, ever, cool, man, family's cool. He was like, nah, dude, you know what today is? It's a free day to learn. And that was his thing. So I remember when he showed me his 25 mag stuff, and I was like blown away by, like, what he said verbatim was, wherever you're at, like in the pen or whatnot, he goes, you have 25 needles and you have a cap of black. Technically, you have everything you need with a cup of water. So all these ink sets, because at the time Roman had all his fusion sets, and like they were getting, this is before the sponsorships got out of hand, but at that time it meant something to be sponsored, because you were like, oh my god, you've made it. And he was like, fuck all that shit, like typical him being like, whack. What are you into? Oh man, I like petting puppies. Whack, but cute. And you go, all right, noted. He goes, you don't need all these ink sets. You don't need this. If you can't do it with the bare essential, if the wheel can't be made out of wood or stone, why the fuck are you going to do good with the car? You know? And like typical young me being like, yeah, man, but I mean, isn't it easier? And he goes, easier is cool till it don't work no more. He goes, the man who can build it is the man who can make it. And I remember thinking about that. And now it's ironic, because with Butch and with you had Zeke, I have Biff. Biff is really all about brown pride, everything. And seeing how he used to work with the guy over at Amor Eternal over in Oakland, Chamuco, Vice did something on him a while back. And just how they talk about culture, man, and how they talk about everything. We only use these type of grays for these type of skin tones, or we're going to use Karasumi for these ones because of their skin tone, because it's going to age this way, the Robert Faux stuff. And it was nice to see that with him, because it taught a kid who was very quick on his feet. Not so much now. But why are you laughing, homie?
I've always known you to be nimble. So.
I appreciate that. Especially when I come to cuddle you. I'm all, but no, the thing was, thank you. I think he taught a kid who could think on his feet really quick how to slow down and think about the repercussions of those quick actions. Because it was really easy for us when we were younger. Fuck it, I'll do it. And he was that type to be like, yeah, but what's the effect? What the fuck are you going to do? How is that going to look? Because he is a true craftsman in the sense of, it's your tattoo, but it's my name.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think I started growing up of like, holy fuck, dude, like, money's a necessity, but it is not important. You know, skill is important. Accountability is important. So seeing him do that, where he would take this thing and he goes, here's your hand. He ghosted me. Fucking Patrick Swayze'd me. He was all, hey, don't be fucking weird. You know? And I'm like, and he got behind me and he put his hand on my hand and he showed me on a practice skin how he was doing that. And I was like, your hand's not resting on the person. Yeah. Like you're floating. And he goes, yeah. And I go, my arm's tired. And he goes, build that shit up.
That's what floating means?
Yes.
You said that the other day and I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah. Well, basically when they're doing this, and like we use the pinky for the what do you call it? The pressure, but as far as like a calibration. So here's a cool trick, right? For my brand new seminar that I'm doing. But it's this thing that I had learned from a friend when I speak about it. Put your arm all the way out. Like literally.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm talking to you, fool. And then, so put your arms out and then go ahead and just move from your, move your hand in and then touch your chest. that point on your chest is the perfect amount of weight and length for you pulling a straight line. So so the homie that was showing me this, he goes, he pulls really long straight lines, casas, on people's backs, and it's just one fell swoop. And he goes, yeah, lean at a 45 and aim for that area, and it's always a perfect line. And just practice that. No rulers, no nothing.
Like a pinstriper.
Exactly. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. And he got that from a pinstriper where the guy goes onto the car 45 and he pulls directly into that line that you memorize, and it'll never be crooked. And he goes, there's skill in what you're doing. And excuse me. And because of that, Tony was very much in the sense of, for I feel like both of us, that guy who was like, listen, dude, I've fucked up. Everybody's fucked up. You're gonna fuck up more. You're gonna be a piece of shit. You're gonna do these things. But what are you gonna do with it all if not be better or try to be better? And so years later, now being in a mentor position, it's funny because would you say you had a good relationship with your parents growing up? 50-50?
Yeah. Probably, yeah, from better than most.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say quite the opposite for me. But I still appreciate what they've done always.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because when you look at things like you are now engaged or married.
Married.
Hey,
married.
okay,
Yeah,
congratulations.
Sorry, we little.
No, it's okay. We're the same way. I'm all fake ass fools. But like last time we spoke, you were a single man, you know? And I feel like now that you have a new family, you know, quote unquote here, a new family, you want to change things that you wouldn't appreciate in your household, how they were. And a mentorship is like being a parent, you know, where you're like, I don't want to discipline you the way I was disciplined, but that fucking knock upside the head, I kind of stopped sticking my dick in a light socket, you know? What? And I feel like that's the hard part, right? Is what we've learned from our mentors. How do you find, do you find yourself struggling?
I think more recently, I mean, I've had conversations with all my apprentices, which sounds funny to say because I'm like 34. I probably had no business, but luckily they're like tattooing and doing well and thriving. Yeah. But just things have changed so much, and then I've changed so much, like how you said, and it's like I've done self work, and I'm trying to like navigate through this weird experience and just treat people right. But I think a big thing that I had to learn is just like my dream is not everyone's dream. So like having that communication and seeing like, what's your goal? Like, what do you plan on doing with this? And then setting that to a standard, and almost like, you know, having people, like, I don't know if they're conscious of their decisions yet, but you can like shake them, you know, and be like, hey, you're awake now?
Yeah.
This is your decision to make, you know, and I'm going to treat you accordingly. So if you want to be like the greatest, I know what it takes. You know, I don't think I'm the greatest, but I know what work ethic it takes, and I know what sacrifices it takes. So don't say you want to be the greatest and then not do shit, you know, but like, this is what it takes, you know, and if you just want to work, this is what we're going to do, and this is how I'm going to treat you, and, you know, we'll get you to work. But
absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking, actually, we have both of our wives here in the studio. Shout out to Sanzu and Des. And then we also have our esteemed guest who's guest spotting over here, known as Morgan Lynn Tattoos from Jersey. But like, I was having a conversation with her about she's a younger tattooer that's coming up, and like, you have a lot of old heads on the East Coast, like Philadelphia Eddie when he was alive, where there's a reason they called him Crazy Philadelphia Eddie. Like, if you ever read about half of the shit that dude did, you're like, God damn. Back into where we won't name names, but when in Montebello, when they had opened, a guy had opened a shop down the street from another guy, and he just threw a grenade into a shop, killed 3 people, and nobody said a thing about it. And this is the 60s. But that's what it was back then. You know, like, what are you going to do about it? Now it's like, it's a very stern talking to. It's this and that. We had a lot of anxiety. We had a lot of trauma. A lot of people guilt tripping you. And like you said, they want you to fail so they can push you down even further. The hard part, I think, on the opposite end is that you also have a lot of people who are too emotionally fragile. I don't want to confuse that with being sensitive.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing is like, if a kid has always heard their parents be like, you're grounded for a week, and then somebody, they act out and they fuck up permanently, or they affect your brand, or they affect your shop or your environment, your family, and then they like, dude, what the fuck is your problem? Oh no, you're a terrible person. It's like, I'm sorry your parents didn't fucking teach you that like actions have consequences, dude, but that doesn't make me a terrible person for holding you accountable for a terrible thing you did.
Yeah.
Ignorance is not necessarily bliss when you can't wipe it away.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this really fucked up thing of being a mentor now, as I've had 3 apprentices and 3 fails. And I don't blame them for that whatsoever. I think the idea of being a tattooer today is so much more enticing because it's a financial gain. When we were coming up, did you ever care about money when you were coming up?
No.
I
like, and that's probably been like one of the, my other mentor, Eric, he was like the one that taught me more about like the financial side and like life and stuff. But
shout
like,
out to Hollywood stars.
Yeah, Hollywood stars, hey. Big E. But yeah, I mean, even now, like, I've always loved tattooing since the beginning. It's like that was not a part of it, and even the lifestyle wasn't really like what drew me to it. It was just something about the craft that was just so seductive. I don't know, like the sensory stuff, the wiping, the ritual of like setting up, breaking down, like being a part of like
routine.
Yeah,
you have structure.
It's like a lighthouse. It's something that I could always go back to no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing for me. Like I lived out of my van, you know, for the first 3 years I was at a shop. I wouldn't buy shoes. Like I had 2 different shoes on. I thought it was fucking cool at the time. I was like, this will never die. And so I did that, and I had holes in my shoes, and they refused to let me work. And I was like, no, I'm not going to let you buy me shoes. That's fucking, no one's going to help me, because my mentality at that time was like, if I let anyone help me, I'm weaker for it, and they have something to use against me later. And ironically enough, when Butch and I first started talking to each other, he's one of the artists here. He's a 53-year-old man, and he's January 27th. His birthday, I'm 28th. I'm not a really big person on astrology, but I do believe that there is a absolute quantifiable thing about it that you can equate to things. But he is an older version of me, as I am a younger version of him. And he needed shoes, and they were $40. And I was like, cool, man. Hey, I really need to go get some shit at Target. Can you fucking help me? Oh yeah, I got your back. And I take him over to fucking Sports Footwear, and he was like, please don't buy me shoes, man. I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna get mad. And I go, okay, well, here, dude, I'm gonna give you 2 options. One, I'm gonna buy these shoes for you, and I'm gonna put them in your hand, and if you say no, you're banned from the shop for life. Or 2, you can admit to me right now you hate your fucking kids and you're a terrible father. Because these shoes, you need them to work. Yes. And your daughters are your world. Yes. Then why would you make work harder that you have less time with your kids? And it sucks because, like, you know me. That is me, where I'm like, are you a piece of shit or are you a super piece of shit? And I told him, I was like, I have to speak to you. Speaking to you is speaking to 17-year-old me. And I realized how much I fucking suck, you know? And that conversation of having that with somebody, of like having help and having to be there, is such an interesting duality, because with apprentices, I had 2 apprentices that were like, oh, I really want this. And they didn't. And when you tell somebody, and agree with me or not, but when we were younger, you don't want it, young blood. But I'm doing everything. And then now, years later, and when you say, like, you don't want it, you understand that in a different capacity.
Yeah.
How did you understand it when you were younger versus now?
When I was younger, I just like was doing a lot, and so I thought that meant that I was doing something. But doing a lot doesn't mean you're doing anything. It just means you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember there's like one memory I remember particularly, because it was just like so intense for me, and like I just kind of ate it. But as an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense, you know. And like but DeNavo, he's one of the artists that was at Oceanfront, and he's like incredible artist. He's the shit. Like him and Tony, I watch them like all the time.
Right.
he wanted his station broken down a certain way, and I didn't break it down that way. And then he was just like, "You don't get to break me down anymore." And I was just like, "No!" You know, I was so fucking crushed. And then I ended up having to go scrub his tubes and everyone's tubes. And this fool was just like talking shit to me, like just going, you know. But he was telling me like the truth, like he's obviously observing me.
Yeah.
And I'm there. I'm just like tunnel vision. I don't see what I'm doing, and like I wasn't showing up enough. You know, I wasn't at the shop enough. But I was spread so thin. I just wouldn't even admit to needing help or anything like that. You know, I was apprenticing. I was a full-time student. I had like 5 classes. I had a part-time job, and I still was tattooing at night. And this was like 7 days a week. And then whenever, you know, I had free time, I would just go to the shop. So it was just like going. And I mess up this dude's thing, and he's telling me like, "Oh, you think you're the shit? You think you're da da da?" And I was like, "I don't think that," you know. But what I was showing them was like a lack of commitment to like what I had originally agreed upon, and I just got like lazier and lazier as time went on. But because I was doing so much, I thought I was doing a lot. But it's like, if I really wanted it, I would have made that a priority. Yeah. And I wouldn't have messed up his breakdown, and I would be at the shop, and I wouldn't have, you know, had these people saying these things to me. Or like I did end up getting let go from the shop, and it was because of that, because I was just like not there enough. And at the time I was like, oh, like why, you know, like
you got on then your like you like an Usher video just dancing
in the rain, just kicking it up. But yeah, and then later on, you know, I'm older, late 20s, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would have fired my ass too. Like I was like blessed to even be there, you know. And at that time particularly, there's like no information. It's so hard to get an apprenticeship. And then that shop alone had like the most, like still a stack. Like if there was a shop like that, it's just so stacked, you know. You had like 3 portrait artists, you had like like 2 really good lettering artists, you have a traditional Japanese artist that's like making his own ink, doing wabori, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And then you have traditional artists, and then also like a neo-traditional from that time. So like just a little higher level of detail, but traditional base.
Absolutely.
And they're all award winners, and they all went on to do like
amazing
even more
things.
stuff. Yeah. And like I'm just there like, oh, why are you yelling at me? It's like, yeah, dude, like what do you should get yelled at. I probably should have got lumped up too, you know. You should have beat me in the back, because hopefully I would like understand.
It sucks because you don't want to have that reinforcement. Again, this goes back to the whole thing of like, did you grow up a certain way? I've had somebody that's worked with me that's like, I had such a rough life, and I go, if you really did, then you wouldn't be talking about it so much the way you do. Like I don't discard any like troubles you've had, but like a perfect example was one of my old coworkers and peers had a apprentice who she just got too much into political shit. She got too much into like her activism and all that shit, which like I'm not denouncing. Don't do that. There's a time and place in a professional work setting. Okay. You're just as responsible for what happens in this balance as that person is, even if you don't agree on anything. And the client's there for a tattoo, not your fucking opinion. So if you have an opinion, that's between you and your client. Don't drag other people into it. She gets let go at that shop, not fucking knowing doom sees all, you know, in the sense of like, we all talk to each other here. We've all known each other for almost fucking 20 years. And she comes into the shop, and the first thing she fucking tells me is, you don't have any females in the shop. You should really change that. And I was like, fuck, bro. Why not? I didn't fucking think of that. Thank you. Thank you for showing me the fucking error of my ways. Well, clearly my fictitious, facetious smile didn't fucking work for her. And she was like, I just don't think you have any women, and that's fucking sexist. And I'm like, this is a great fucking interview, dude. I'm glad you walked in.
Oh, she was applying for a job?
Yes. Oh. She didn't even fucking ask me for the job. She just told me that straight out, and I was like, fucking dope. I was really hoping on fucking having a good conversation today. And so, I mean, again, I want to try to be understanding as best as possible. So I said, okay, well, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Can you show me your work? Yeah, my work's pretty good. Again, like the tone. And I'm like, all right, cool. And this girl is probably like in her early 20s. So I'm like, cool. And I see it, and it's fucking, like as my dad would say, on a scale of 1 to corn dog, that's some hot dog shit. And I told her that to her face, and she's like, yeah, how dare you? I've worked really hard, younger me would have been like, bitch. Older me is like, bitch. Very, very patient. But yeah, very much. I'm all that. I am the smart one here. No, I said, you know what, hon? Like, I don't question your hard work. I question your work ethic. How long have you been tattooing? 7 years, which is a fucking lie because she had only been doing it for like about 9 months. But I said, if you had been doing it 7, you only paid attention for 6 months. I can see that right there.
Yeah.
If you wanted to come in, it would have been different if you could have done it this way or that way. Well, then I'm going to go and do my own thing. Please do. And I hope you prove me wrong. And I don't mean that I don't mean that to be facetious. Like, I'm not trying to make fun of her. I'm like, dude, please prove me wrong because I care about the craft enough that you're going to improve it. So then later on, there's this girl that comes in and her name is Debbie. She's a really cool kid. She's trying to learn some stuff. And I guess she was working at another shop and they just didn't want to give her an opportunity. So she comes in and she goes, well, am I good enough to be in a shop? Showing me her work. And her work is not good, not even a little bit. But every time I'm like, try this, she listens. Morgan's the same fucking way. That's the reason why she's visiting. But the funny thing is that I go, are you asking me if your work is good enough for a shop or for my shop? And she goes, well, yours. I go, not yet. Again, not a no, just not yet. You need to keep working on it. I feel like I work really hard. What is it that I'm not doing? And I said, okay, think of a shop like a pizza party. I bring the pizza, okay? I have the fucking pepperoni, I have the cheese, the veggie, and that weird ass fucking broccoli and like garlic one that hardly anyone eats, but they get it, right? I buy that.
With the white sauce?
With the white sauce, playboy! Then I have an artist who does sodas. They have a bunch of varieties, and they bring everything. Why is that the fat guys always got to do food analogies?
They got the Target machine where they make personal sodas.
Yeah, it's the fucking Mount Shasta one, you cheap fuck. And they bring the sodas. They have a plethora of options, but that's what they do. Then you have that one fucking prick that brings chips. Why the fuck would I want chips? You know what? Put them on the table. Thank you. And they put chips and dip. Then you have the one asshole who brings the fucking plates. I don't need plates. I grew up in the ghetto. Give me a paper towel. I'm fine. Pizzas are self-fucking contained. I can hold it itself.
Their plates built in.
Yes, exactly. It's the iPhone of food. And so, like, that being said, I was like, so technically I have everything for the pizza party. She goes, yes. Okay. Then what do you bring to the table that I don't already have? And she goes, ranch? Such like a genuine answer, right? And I was all, nice. And what
That's a bar.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more fucking more rizzed. She's all, but she goes, ranch. And I go, and I smiled because no one had ever answered it that way. And I go, that right there, on top of the fact that you come in once in a blue moon to say, hey man, here's my sketches. Could you give me some more exercises? Because I think she's trying to move to Florida with her boyfriend. And I was like, yeah, dude. I go, there you go. See that determination? You're thinking inside the box. If you're going to be part of a shop, you have to be something that adds to the environment, not takes from it. Because the environment will give you everything if you can give to it itself. And there's this weird trend of where it's like, you don't need to work for a shop. The shop needs you. And it's like, in the reality, nobody fucking needs you. And you don't need any shop. It's where you lie.
Yeah.
Now that you have people that want to come in and have these conversations of, well, I taught myself everything. Morgan and I were talking earlier about...
sick.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, teach me something then.
Yeah, 100%. Morgan and I were talking earlier about this all-female shop. And it's the conversation, and guys aren't supposed to talk about it, but I fucking will. The idea of, like, this is a safe space. It's going to be all females. I have 9 sisters, dude. Women hate each other for the most part. Okay. But the thing is they have this conversation of like, we're an all female shop. So you have like, come and support this. That is awesome. But I don't care if you're all women. I care if you're all good. Having a theme for a shop, like no dude shops, like all dudes. I'm down with the safe space. I'm down because some fucking dudes are just stupid ass creeps. I've met some women that are fucking creeps too. But I'm down for the idea of what it stands for. But that shouldn't be an excuse for poor work.
Yeah.
Because
and identity too. I think that is like I can't really speak on like the female experience.
Absolutely.
But like I don't know, like if that's your selling point, I think you should, like, if anybody pigeonholes himself like that, period, like whether it's that or something else, I think it's important to like you said, think about the work first. And environment is great, but just because like you're doing that doesn't mean, you know, that you're better than anybody either.
Not at all, because here's the thing. If you're all killing it, like fucking I forget their name, but they're down in
Garage Inc.
Fullerton, but they're an all-female shop, and every one of those ladies, dude, fucking kills it. Beautiful fucking work. And it's like, if you want to inspire other people, male, female, non-binary, whatever the hell you go by, then give them a great example of who to be, right? Because you now, even though, like you said, you don't want to be called an OG, nor do I. We are the OGs of our generation with the new heads and the new kids. We don't fucking believe that, but that's where we get placed. You are just as responsible to show what's happening if you're going to put yourself out there, right? And I feel like that's the hard part, is you have a tremendous amount of influencers now versus tattoo artists.
Yeah, and I think that gets confusing too, because like I mean, I did go to school for animation, but we did like a lot of media, not media training, but media education.
Right. And
so it's like, it's programming, you know, anything that you're ingesting or content. People like to say content now, but it's like, it's still programming. You know, you're still on YouTube. It's just a different vehicle that you're receiving the information from. And like, I've just been having my head down so long and working, like I kind of like pop up and I see what's happening, and I'm more of an observer than a participant these days. You know, I was doing the YouTube stuff for a while, and I was doing Instagram lives, and I was doing it quite a bit, and I was aggressive with it, and then I stopped, and then now I'm watching, and I'm seeing like the programming happening, and seeing how young tattooers are programmed, and they think like, this is how it should be, or like, because you have this many followers, or your work's this good, you're going to be the same as these people because these people do that. And like, why aren't you doing that? Because these people do that. And like, when I grow up, I want to do what they do. And it's like, like you just program like 30,000 people to think like this is what you do. But like, you don't have to do Q&As. You don't have to do, you know, podcasts. You don't have to like make dances and stuff like that. But you know what I mean though? Like, I think it's important for people to like realize that you are programming yourself, and like, and you don't have to do these things. Like, if you like doing it and you enjoy doing it, then pursue that, you know, but you shouldn't tattoo so that you can like make a podcast. You shouldn't like, you know, there's, you could just do a podcast, right? You know,
and not have a string attached to it. And that's the hard part, going back to the thing of like that girl who came in aggressively versus the one who comes in honestly. Like, I root for both, but I will help only one. And it's hard because the older way I was brought up as a son, as a brother, as well as a apprentice, was very aggressive. What are you, fucking gay? Get back to work. You know what, bro? We need to have a meeting. But my girl and I are going on a trip for a week. I'll see you in a week. And that fucking week is the longest, most depressing week of your life.
Yeah, and you're tripping.
You know, all of a sudden, like, I'm looking at an apple. I'm like, oh, God damn it, man.
Yeah, and even, like, to add a little bit to that, like, helping or, like, giving information, like, it's I think some younger artists need to understand that it's not just about gatekeeping. There's like 5 words that people like have learned, but I don't think they're accurate enough. I feel like these words are like umbrella words that like cover the basis of a lot of things, but they're not vague, or they're too vague. They're not accurately like portraying what's happening. So like a gateway, like somebody's like, oh, you're a gatekeeper, but it's like they don't know the words to accurately like describe what's happening. And from the other side, it's the person might not be a gatekeeper. The other person might be stressed out, and like the other person might take that role so seriously that if they were to be that role for like 100 people, 1,000 people, like it would crush them. You know, it'll crush their whole being. Like I have like 3 people that I have the responsibility of like making sure not only that they eat, but that they eat forever, you know, and that they go into any shop and they're able to like meet people properly, to say hi to people properly, to like be an asset to go out in life and represent themselves the right way. Like if I just gave that to everyone, like it's gonna crush me. And like I'm sure other artists feel that way too. So it might not even be that these people are being rude to you. It might be, this is a lot. And whenever you take that role in somebody's life, it's very serious, and that's part of the tradition of like tattooing. And even though like there was communication barriers in the past, and there was probably a lot of sociopaths too, like there were a lot of sociopaths that did care about the people that they did. They just showed it in a really fucked up way,
Trauma begetting trauma, right? Mm-hmm. Like the idea of my cousin and I spoke about this one time with our dads. My dad was the oldest, his dad was the youngest, and they were best friends. My cousin and I never got along. My dad and his dad would get together for lunch every Wednesday, rain, sunshine, whatever. His dad couldn't have alcohol. My dad couldn't have sugar. And what the fuck did they do? Beers and sodas. Just treated themselves. And it would be like, hey, mijo, please come and have lunch. Anything for you, tío. But my son's going to be there. You know what, bro? I'm busy. But I love you. And there was this like really big disconnect. And from his point of view, now that years later, we're fucking extremely cool after our dads died. We like buried the hatchet till like we were looking at each other and we're like, and he goes, what the fuck are we angry about? I go, I don't really know. And so we like crushed it. And I could not see my life without this dude, especially with the stuff that now that our dads are gone, we're like, we laugh like, we look and sound like our dads. And it's a very beautiful, hard thing to hear. And I think like one thing we had talked about was, why did they do what they did, right? A, B, and C. But my dad stabbed his father to protect his mom, and then his mom never wanted to see him again. So he lived with this trauma of like, family's always gonna kill you, And his dad was always like, well, fuck, dude, I didn't kill my wife. I just hit her. But my dad was the one who beat her within a coma of her life. So in their head, I did better than my father. So you sit there and you're talking about this shit and you're like, to them, I did better than him, so I'm good. And so when you're in a position with a student or a mentor, like the guys I used to apprentice, I love them to death. They were two of my oldest best friends. And I lost two best friends because the 18 years I've suffered for this, they threw it to the wayside because they were just lazy. Like you said, they were doing too much. I'm not saying that they didn't try, but they didn't give what they should have to it, and I paid the price. I have to look at this place every single time, and I tell the boys it's like a hotel, right? Every day that you fuck off is every day I have to pay for it. I have no problem helping you when you need it, but it's there. And I don't want to be that guy of like, well, you know what? My mentors screamed and yelled and guilt tripped me. So maybe if I just do a little bit of gaslighting and fucking pathology, I ain't that bad. I can't have my father's mentality of how I treat people because it didn't solve anything. You have to break that with people. But because people are so easily influenced these days about tattooing, the 5 ways you can do this, the fucking this, the that. CPL filters, are they bad? Yeah. And like the number one thing I don't respect at a YouTube personally, because like I was talking to my old mentor, the drum mentor, and he was like, TikTok is a sentence. People go there to just listen to 100 things in under 10 minutes. Instagram is a chapter. You can work in your entire life, but they're there to kill time because they're bored. So they need more of something until they can focus on one thing. He goes, YouTube is amazing because it's a journal. It's a book. You can post something and take 6 months off, but it's always there. Work at your pace and tell what you have to do. Are you a storyteller or are you a content creator? You know? And I think with that, it helped me personally to look at like how I instruct or teach or learn, because I can't yell at somebody and make you understand. Yeah. I can't let you comprehend that. But I can be like, you know what, dude? If I tell you to draw something, my job is to help you understand the bare fundamentals of it. And that's 5%. Here is a piece of paper for the live stream. I'm going to do a triangle. I'm going to do 2 circles. 1, 2, squiggly line, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Really shitty skull. But if you use a brush pen, you can get more detailed, less detailed. Carl Kapowski, Sean Barber, Libre Majero, fucking to the late Kim Gee, the great. They all have exercises. The 5% is teaching you what those 3 shapes and 9 lines do versus the 95% of you going and filling an entire book and comprehending why this should be better than the last one. And it's hard because how we learned was people being like, get your shit straight. But you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, but some of that aggressiveness, not in the sense of being like a prick or a sociopath, but like some of that being like, hey bro, you need to stop fucking up, has to come. I had a guy tell me one time, mama didn't raise a quitter. And I go, she fucking should have though. Because then you'd quit your bad attitude, your bad fucking guilt trips, and your fucking sorry bullshit of everyone being like, oh, but poor me. Yeah. I'm sorry you're going through some terrible stuff, but that has fucking nothing to do with the shop, dude. You can talk to me as a friend, but you have to perform as a peer. And there is no difference between that.
Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah. I think you have that at your shop because your shop has always been a very tight-knit thing.
Yeah. And that's something that I learned from Hollywood Stars, you know, and
with Eric, right?
Yeah, and like his thing was, I'm like basically like a fucking mini shitty Xerox print of Eric. Like if I could at least like say like I'm kind of like him, I would like to, but like he always would mentor people and like bring them in and teach them, and then you know that's how he always grew his crew, and then it just kind of rotated every like 3 or 4 years, and we've kind of cultivated that same environment. But I think that's why, you know, my opinion is how it is, because like for me, if I'm in, like I'm all in. So I can't like, it feels like it's cheapening it if I spread it between like all like I don't know, even like 40 people, you know, because I need if this person wants to work, like there's certain things that I need to be able to do to get you to that point, and there's certain things like it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of like fucking creating curriculum. And like it takes a lot of like attention. It takes a lot of like encouragement. And then also like how you're saying like I don't know what that would be called, but just like putting people in check, you know, and like making sure they're getting there, and like or like keeping them accountable to their word. Yeah, and like I think sometimes people don't understand that. Or like they're just so like in the clouds, they're not focused, and like the drills is really where it's at. Like you could give somebody a seminar for like 2 hours and give them all the information, but if they're not practicing every single day afterwards, like probably what some people would say is like unhealthy amount of hours, like you're not really gonna amount to very much. You'll do okay, you know, and you could work and stuff, but it's all in those hours afterwards. And like if you're upset with somebody holding you accountable to like what you said that you wanted, then I think there's like a lot of assessment that needs to be done within yourself. And then that's the whole other layer of like, if somebody's coming to you for information, sometimes you have to give them tasks so that they can be ready to take the information. Because you might show up and be like, what's the secret? And it's like, I'll give you the secret, and then you don't even know what to do with it. You have no idea what the words mean. Our language barrier is there, like, and not like a language like Spanish or English, but like if I'm talking about edges or I'm talking about like curvilinear lines, like you're gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, your literacy. That's what you were talking about earlier. I didn't mean to interrupt, but like, but like the word you're looking for is the literacy. That idea of like, you can hear what I'm telling you, but do you comprehend what I'm telling you? When Tony was like, take this needle, this black and water, and do this, and I was like, into destin, you know, the fucking the meme, because I understood needle plus black plus 2 dips in the water equals this. 10 years later, now I'm like, oh shit, plus hand motion, plus this, plus that. And like it comes out of us because we've done it repetitiously. But I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. I heard the words, I didn't comprehend them, you know. And I think Samara is a really good fucking thing. Shout out, you fucking dumb bitch. Love you to death, but goddamn. No, Samara is probably one of the best examples, because I started speaking to her when you first had her, because I also was a piercer that became a tattoo artist, and piercing was a really good way to make sure I had a solid understanding of, I have a job and I'm at the shop. And when she was learning from you, she had a lot of anxiety and bad habits, and not putting her shit out there or anything, but it's like, because you have two different motions as a piercer versus a tattoo artist. Being a piercer is very quick, and you learn certain things and whatever, but it's an assessment thing that happens face to face. Your art assessment happens stroke to stroke, and so you're learning how to adapt to things. So I remember when we were talking one day, we were hanging out at the shop when I was eating the Farmer Boys. I had discovered Farmer Boys because you guys, those fucking chicken salads, my man, fucking $20 a damn, oh god damn. And she had asked me a question, and she was like, what was the hardest thing for you as a tattoo apprentice? I go, being irresistibly handsome. It was just impossible to get things done. I said, I think what was hard for me truly was, like being a musician, when I first got into tattooing, I was already touring off and on, and that was my like thing I did on the side. Same thing for piercing. When I went to Romans, John Grave, shout out to the fucking great John Grave, who has mentored many artists and gets no fucking credit from them, said, no respectable tattoo artist is also a respectable piercer. And my young ass was like, I'm going to change that. And he goes, don't get what I'm saying twisted. I'm not saying you can't do two things and be great. I'm saying you can't be great at one thing if you're never focusing on just that one thing. Get great at that thing first, and then adapt other things to that. So for her, I was like, you know, I think the hard part is that if you always have something to fall back on, you're never truly going to excel at this, because the only way you get great at something is when you fall and you're hanging by a thread. You learn how to pull yourself up. Yeah. But if you're like, oh, fuck, escalators, why didn't I do that? It doesn't help you learn the things that you do when the chips are down.
Yeah, and I think for me, my personal experience, that's been like the biggest lesson. You know, and that's what's always like pulled me back to tattooing, or like kept me in tattooing and kept like tattooing as a lighthouse, because I didn't have anything else.
Yeah, same.
You know, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't have anybody else. Now I'm older, I probably could have had other people to help me. I probably could have had my family to help me, but like I got kicked out when I was like 17, and then I did get invited back to my home, but then I got grounded, and then I was like, you're out of here, you know, and I had to really go, and the environment that was at home, it just wasn't going to work. You know, my dad was really hard on me. We had a really bad relationship at that time, and it was just, it was very like not good. You know, and like it wasn't good. And when I went out to LA, like I was on my own, like 100%. Like, I did have the support of my mom because she was co-signing for like my loans for school. Yeah. So that's great. But other than that, like
you still had
I paid for everything. You know, I did everything myself, and I made sure rent was due. But it was like, it's different, you know, when it's a homie that's also broke and it's like, we need rent in 2 days. It's just like, oh fuck, dude. Like, and that didn't really go away for a long time. Like, I think when I was doing the YouTube show, I think I was like, I've been tattooing for 10 years and I've been broke for 8, or been tattooing 9 years, I've been broke for 8. And like,
I remember that.
Like, and then it's like, it went away. It was like broke again. And it's like, but I've always went back to tattooing, and having those where you're like up against the wall and you don't tell anybody and you just get it. Even, you know, recently, like there's been times where it's like, damn, like this shit's looking rough, and the only person that can really like make it happen is myself.
Yes.
And tattooing's been so beautiful to me that like I've been able to do it and handle things, and like there's a lot of situations that I've been in that no one will ever know, but you know, because I had that situation, I was like, okay, I gotta hustle. But it also made me like just grind like crazy. People ask me what I'm doing, and then I tell them what I'm doing, and they're just like, I'm not doing that. It's like, dude, I don't blame you, but I'm fucking crazy, dude, and I love it. Like, luckily.
And you have, well, that's part of the conversation of like, do you want it? Like, you don't want it versus you do is hard to vocalize to some people because they think like, well, I bought everything. I've put in every day, every time. I'm falling asleep at night to this shit. And it's like, that's crazy, man, because, I fall asleep too. I don't know if this happens to everybody, but I go to bed at night, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, of course you go to fucking sleep. Anybody, who the fuck doesn't go to sleep? Besides crackheads. Shout out Fresno.
Yeah.
But, I mean, truthfully, the idea of like, well, I put in 20 hours, but what did you actually invest in those times? And it becomes more difficult because, like, again, back to the whole reason why I brought up Samara, seeing that kid go from like where she was almost going to lose her job because she was like fucking tonto head sometimes, and talking to her. And again, I say this because I'm so fucking proud of her because she actually is very good at tattooing. She's really
incredible.
She's incredible. She's a hard worker, and she fucking genuinely puts her ass out there to show that she cares, and the way she speaks about you in private. And it's always from a place of love.
Yes.
It's always a place of respect. She's always had that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I respect it from a piercer who became a tattooer as well, because that is not an easy transition to when I was a musician and a piercer. I was great at something, and in the world of like, I tell the story about how when my first mentor was like, hey, you play in a rock band? I go, sure. And he goes, that's crazy, bro. Play guitar on this. And he handed me a broom. And I was like, ooh. And it's hard to be.
Yeah, you have to start over.
You have to start over.
And like, Samara's a good piercer too.
Yes.
So her starting over is pretty wild.
It's a hard thing because it's your pride. Path before pride. My pops would say, like, when you're a young person, you will always choose your pride. Fuck it, I'm dope. I'm going to do it my way. And you burn a lot of paths along that side. He goes, but when you get older, you learn that what's left is scorched earth. So as you get older, choose the path before your pride. And I've always respected that shit because I'm guilty of it. We all are. We're all here trying to figure it out. And like, you look at this kid who, from the last podcast, which is crazy to think was like 5-6 years ago, right, with body art, and before COVID, before all the craziness that went down, and it was just like, one day I'll get really good. And now she's fucking killing it. But like, she put in the amount of effort and time, not just as an artist, but as a person. Like, she's close to you, she's close to your wife, and all this stuff, and you can now leave the shop and trust that that person's handling to the best of their ability. And
oh, my bad.
No, go ahead, please.
She kind of came pre-cooked too, just from being in shops, being in like Mooney Inc., and that really helped a lot because I didn't know what I was doing. We're like basically the same age, and I'm trying to apprentice her. But she did a lot of like, I hope that I laid like a decent foundation and like had an okay, gave an okay example of like ambition or something. But I do know that she did a lot of work on her own to like get to that spot, and she worked really hard, and now she's like, she's pretty much booked, and she has like, it's like people that know her, like a little cult following, which is not even little, it's huge, or like it seems huge, because I mean, even one time me and Des went out to eat, and like the server like knew of her. They're like, oh, you work with Samara? And I was like, yeah, dude, like I do work with Samara. And then she's like, rad. Oh, that's so cool. And I'm just like, yeah, it's super cool, And then she was like,
I ordered a soup.
Yeah, she brought out like, we got free Chile Verde fries for that, just because we work with her. And I was like, dude, like Samara,
like like whenever they have a cartel, please let the Empress know that we appreciate that. Well, fuck yeah. I do remember her liking extra sour cream on these fries, though.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. They even freaking made like video of the Chivo or something. They sacrificed a goat in the bag. They brought it out. I was like, I'll let her know, dude. But yeah,
she shall be appeased, the Samar.
It's cool to see that too, though. That is like probably the like a big rewarding aspect of like being a part of someone's journey. That's why I hope that I did give her enough tools. I do know that she could go anywhere and like tattoo anywhere, which is great. And I know that she's gonna represent herself properly and like do just extraordinary things anywhere she goes, which is awesome. It's just like she did it, you know. She's in there. She's an artist, like 100% an artist, and she's growing and she's aggressive with like taking on bigger pieces, expanding on what she does, you know. Like she's not content with just doing one thing. She's like taking on different styles now. She's like done color stuff. She's did a couple realism tattoos like not that long ago. She did this one, I don't think she posted it, but she did like a lettering tattoo on one of the collectors that comes to the shop, and just murdered it. It's like old English. It looks like big me's, and it had like spray can effects, and it just came out sick, you know. And it was like just out of nowhere, and she's just like the silent killer in the back, just like taking
she's
aim.
Also fucking she's like 4'3" with like bony ass fingers. She's got it down. But like that's the point, right? Is I remember this kid, and we see in people that we help mentor, as we still consider ourselves like students, we see the chance to be given to somebody that wants it. And when you see that person thrive, even if it's not at your shop, like even the guys that I try to apprentice the first times, I had 2 that couldn't draw for shit, and I wanted to believe in them. And then I had one who really could draw, but then didn't do anything with it at the time. And I'm still proud of them. Like I still love everything about those dudes. The thing is like, this just wasn't your bag, dude. And that's okay, because you're great at other things. But to see somebody thrive that you put just faith into, and they are like, hey man, I think I want to go do something better for me. I think that's where our new journey as mentors and as artists and people in this leg of life has become, where it's like, I'm proud of you, dude. I want to see you fucking grow. Even if it's not at my door, I want to see you do the best you possibly can anywhere, because that's ultimately the goal. You know, one of my favorite conversations was a Kim Gee quote where they talked about how when he started becoming a student, he was like a late student in his fucking 20s, and Korea has a fucking high standard for art, you know, like they're masters by the time of the 3rd year in school at some of these institutes. And Super Sonny, he goes, I wasted a lot of time on 30 strokes as a young artist rather than perfecting 3 to get what I need to be done. And the thing, like you were saying about like the comprehension of something or being able to talk about stuff, is like, it's like a child, you know. A kid learns for the first 5 years how to use words and speak, and by year 3 or 4, you know, if they're so lucky, water, bathroom, fire fuck instead of fire truck, and all these different things that a kid will say. But then they learn sentences, and those sentences are used in a way of like, well, I'm going to the store. But at some point, that person learns how to articulate really what they're feeling and saying. Art works the same way. We spend many years learning the language and then learning how to articulate how we voice those things. The hard part is learning not to feel stupid by failing. You are huge into your tattoo rap battle shit that you do. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because I'm the opposite. I don't give 2 shits about competitions. Not because I poo-poo anyone who does it, because I'm not a competitive person. I'm a petty person, which I guess would be a form of competition, but in my own
it's
right.
It's like an intelligent form of competition.
It is, where I'm like
I'm just going to fuck with these people just so that
I walk around like this purposefully around people. And I'm like, yes. But I mean, like the reality of it is what I love about that is that you've always encouraged people to be a better version of themselves, but you're not going to feed it to them. You have to earn it. Samara earned her place because she took the 95% out of the 5 that you were trying to be like, this is where your baseline is, and here you go. I'll help you any other way, but there's steps. I'm helping you read like, you know, you can't pick up a book at fucking 1st grade and be like, Tahini, it's the stupid. What the fuck is your problem? No, you're like, all right, sound it out. With the E. Well, if it's an why isn't it a U and an H? Well, sometimes like you're gradually helping that person formulate something. And
sorry to interrupt you, but like,
God damn it, that's it, we're done.
my communication is at a different place now too. So for her, it was more just like, it wasn't like I was helping her sound it out. I was like, it just is, you know. And like each apprentice, I got like better at communication. I was just better at like, you know, understanding different things and like kind of letting go of like the old stuff a little bit and like just being better, you know, like because with Samara it was like the drawing books where it's like a circle, a line, and then it's like a fully rendered donkey, and it's like just do it because it is, you know. And like I really wish I could have been better at that time to give her like more, you know, because she's like the line work master now. She has like this like live, I don't want to give away her secrets, but she has like she
uses liners for lines. It's the 25 man. God damn you, Tony. Tony.
But you know, like I had asked her, like I always bring it up, but it's like she has like 5 different brands of like a 3-liner, and then she has like different needle groupings of the same grouping. And like the way that I tattoos, I just go to the truck, I say 3 type bug pin. I don't know the gauge. I don't know like if it's titanium or if it's fucking copper. Like I don't know, you know, I don't know if it's long or medium taper. That's just what I do. So like that's something that she did on her own. Yes. You know, which is super impressive. Whereas like when it came to Michaela, I got a little bit better at communication, but Michaela was like, shout out Michaela. She's an incredible artist. I just don't
know her that well. That's only why, but she's a phenomenal.
Yeah, she's insane. And she came pretty quick too. Yeah. So she like Samara came knowing shop life. She knew like shop politics. She knew about like you know, etiquette and things like this, and she'd been in street shops where like, you know, crazy shit happened. Like she was just talking about, or well, not just like 7 years ago we had her stories, and Michaela came, she had the whole art base. Yes. So I just like kind of showed her more how to tattoo, but she had it pretty hard too. Like I was, you know, still kind of hung up on like a lot of older stuff, and I felt like these were traditions that I needed to do that maybe weren't necessary, but maybe were necessary. I'm not sure like what I should have done, but she's working really well now. And then now I have Xander, and it's like now I understand like communication signals. I understand like sometimes some people will say this but mean this, or like sometimes you know, I need to like elaborate more, or I need to approach it this way, or I need to have better timing and not just like bombard somebody or like take someone aside every time there's an issue, you know. And like but it's just like it's a whole learning experience, and each person that is at the shop has done the work that needs to be done, and they when it's time to get busy, like they're ready to get busy. Xander couldn't draw for shit when he came. Like when he came, I was just like, well, this ain't gonna work. Like this can't draw. Well, and now he draws like hella good, and people are just like, what? Like you must have been drawing your whole life. And he's like, no, probably like 3 months before I came into the shop.
That was with me. Like RC paid me one of my favorite compliments ever, and he was like, you're one of my favorite painters. And I was like, because that's my hero, right? Like,
yeah, RC is a monster. Dude, I don't know him, but he's like so good.
Yeah, and he's one of the funniest fucking dudes ever. Like literally, I'm like, hey man, how you doing this morning? On the year of our Lord 2024, hot tea. What the fuck does that mean? He goes, I don't know. What's up? Like he's just an oddball, but in the best of ways, because he's authentic in who he is. But he gave me this like compliment of like, you're one of my favorite painters because it's fucking crazy how you do this and this, and like he'll just go off, and I'm like, but you're the guy I've looked up to my whole life, and I still do. Like I'm very fortunate to call him and his amazing wife Taylor, who is also an artist. Like I'm very fortunate to call them like great friends and family, as I am to you both. But it's this thing of, it's a respecting, right? Like wow, that's crazy. And when people would be like, oh man, you've been drawing since you were a kid, I was like, I didn't start drawing until I was like 20. You know, I was in a shop before I started drawing. You know, because I had a different mentality back then. Obviously, again, illiteracy at its finest with art. And when you were talking about Xander for the first time, and you're like, you know, because you usually were going for people that were already like in art school or something, that you were trying to find where you could find a good fit. And with him, I remember asking him, oh, so who's the kid? And you were like, he doesn't even do art, man. Fuck it, I'm trying something new. Like the way that we speak to each other.
Yeah.
And to see his dedication, I don't think you have had to be doing something a long time to give something new a shot and like find love for it. My love has never been for art. It's been for structure in things. That's why I've always said to you, like, you're an artist in my opinion. I am an academic. I am not you. You find love in art, and you're like, man, the trees are beautiful.
Not me.
At all.
I would say I'm a tattooer.
We'll see, but like how we've always talked when we're in private. To me, where I'm like, if you put this like mezzanine blue with olive crimson red and the number 42 and then this, I love the mechanics of the science. And we just happen to meet in the middle because technique is where we meet in the tattooing realm, in the painting realm. The craft itself. And that's really hard to teach to somebody because you can't fucking fake that. Yeah. So when you see people coming in and then they start prefacing their actions with like, well, this will get me more followers and this and that. I feel like a lot of where we are now, especially like we have to owe a lot of stuff to Ink Master, to Miami Ink, specifically Miami Ink, because that was the first tattoo show. And when we were coming up, it was like, are you good enough to show your tattoos to the world? And people were so diverse about that shit. I remember Gil Monty and those guys being like, I would never in a million years. How dare they share our secrets?
Or even the DVDs. Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. A year later, the brand new DVD by Gil Monty, buy it now. And it was like, wait a minute. So it's not cool if you're not doing it. Yeah. And then you have this divide. Then you get into the Ella Ink era, and then you got a bunch of artists that were not tattooers who were starting to put art techniques into tattooing. And like you would get especially in LA where it was happening when we were there at that time, Chet Zar and Hussar and all these guys were fucking meeting up. Carl Dobsky, fucking Sean Cheetham.
Sean Cheetham was like a big influence on a lot of portrait artists.
All of them. And they would go to Long Beach to Timeline Gallery when it was still up. Shout out to them. Now they're the Raven and the Wolves.
Yeah, that's where I got my hand done. I remember that was like intense for me to like sit in a room, and it's like I got tattooed by Alan Padilla.
Yeah.
And then it was him, Carlos Torres, Josh Duffy, and Sergio Sanchez, and I was just like.
Exactly. That if any of our wives ever wondered if we were gay in that room, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Fuck yeah, bro. All day. And
my body's a vessel. Use it
for art. For art.
Do whatever you want with it.
Exactly.
I can take it.
That's your man. But for now. But you know what I mean? Is like that was such a huge thing because to the normal person, nobody realized those are the world game changers of tattooing for the new generation, right? And we were there, and when Alan was doing his big portraits and paintings in oil with Torres, and then Nico got into it, and then Cheetham and them were showing the Zorn palettes and all that stuff. And I remember sitting there down the street from Cheetham and Dobsky, because out of both of them I respect them both, but like Dobsky's my favorite. And Carl, his palette, where he goes, everything in my palette has a gray hue to it, except for this. Oh, so it's for one red. Oh, so it's a Zorn palette. No, because that red has a shift of green and orange. Why? Because anytime a warm hits it, it's a blush. So all his characters are very macabre and bleak, but all their high points are blush tones. So even though we don't read it as hot or warm, we read it as alive in a very
flush.
Flush in a very dead setting. And he goes, that's how I tell my stories. You're
cold,
but it's like running in a storm, and this outside is very cold, but you're very flush, and that feeling is beautiful in a very bleak situation. I was like, goddamn boy, you fucking good. This boy good. And then to this day, that's why a lot of my studies have that palette, because I look at that and I'm like, nobody fucking cares about that shit if you don't care about it. So to go to like Timeline and all these guys that were getting influenced, and we were in LA at the right time where art and tattooing were merging.
Yeah, and we got to like watch it in real time.
Going to the parties. And I remember, like, thank God I was single at the time, because I've met so many fucking people that unfortunately are no longer artists that had the drive and the potential, but it was always their boyfriend or their girlfriend. Are there other bitches there? Are there fucking and then all of a sudden it's like, no, why aren't you coming home at fucking, like, why are you coming home at 3 a.m.? Then they would want to get invited to these things, and they're like, I'm fucking bored. And you're like, okay, but they're here to paint, and they're talking, and it's a very quiet environment. They have a few beers, they have this and that, but then they would do that, and then, all right, so I'm going to do this, the hog bristle. I don't like this company because I have to pick out hairs. I like this one because when I put the paint in it, and you're genuinely learning from masters, and people are like, I can't, bro, my girl's going to get upset. My guy doesn't like me around other dudes, and like I see some of those people because I'm still friends with them, like online, and it's like working at hurts. And I'm all, you know what really hurts? This, looking at this, because you see that they still are drawing and they draw well, but there's a time and place, I think, in history for everything to evolve. And we happen to be very lucky to be there at the apex of things growing. Demasi, fucking, your boy that, DeVries, like DeVries, you had fucking Nico, you had all these guys, and then you started getting the Europeans in there and the Russians in there, and all of a sudden it became this thing of where Carlox from Argentina, when he was coming up here and that dude was killing color, like, how are you doing it? He goes, I had gray. And then the fucking Russians, how the fuck does everything look so fucking deep and rich? Well, we all go to like traditionally trained fucking schools to learn from like Rembrandt paintings and so forth. And you're like, God damn.
Yeah.
Now you have this thing of where enough people, what was the guy's name? Was it Silva? The one that, you remember he was a YouTube influencer and then he killed somebody?
Daniel Silva?
Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he, I think, is where that pivot changed, where a lot of people were like, don't you want to be a cool guy who learns at home?
Yeah.
And then it started going into other.
He really like I don't know him personally. I did get laser with him one time at Empire State. That was pretty cool. But I do watch like a lot. I do study the game, not just like tattooing and techniques, but I do watch what's happening and I do like take note of things.
You're
and like
aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and I'm just such a big fan anyways. Like even if it's shitty content, I'm gonna consume it because I'm like obsessed with tattooing.
Right.
And I Daniel Silva, I think, was one of the first people that really took that YouTube thing to the next level and like sold the lifestyle and sold it in a different way at that time. Yes. Now it's like a dime a dozen. There's a lot of people replicating what he did, and I feel like if he hadn't had his accident, he probably would have ate everything up. Like it would have been a whole different environment. Sorry. But he was a really good technical tattooer. But the thing that I did, I guess, respect about the path is that he did it on his own. I don't know if he had like a machine behind him or like what his team looked like, but he went from Ink Master, he took the momentum and then went on and like built something himself rather than like trying to maneuver through the industry or doing anything like that. He kind of made his own path, built his own city and like cultivated that, and then I mean, he's able to live off of it now. He's not as like, I mean, his page seems to be doing super well, but it's not as
fluid as it used to be.
Yeah, you don't see the name tossed around as much, but like people know who he is, and his tattoos are good. You know, they're super clean and they're incredible. He's
phenomenal. I feel like that's the thing with me is like I remember when like I started this podcast, there was only one tattoo podcast in the world at the time, me, and like I was like, all right. I remember sitting with Solon when they were doing something for H2 Ocean and them teaming up, and Richie Bulldog's tattoo butter for him. And I had made a comment to, what was his fucking name? The guy who was always the film guy, Tadao. He was the guy who was always doing the filming for Solon. And I was like, have you guys ever thought about doing like a podcast and like doing videos where you're showing people talking about like the education? I have a video I shot when I was super fucking like skinny. I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? My fucking long emo hair. And I was trying to explain my paint palette. And I was just like 2:00 in the morning at the shop when I was living in the back. And fucking lo and behold, the very next 2 months, a whole thing of Solon TV, a whole thing of this and that. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was the type that kept being like, you should try this, this, and this, because I've always had like ideas of like how to maneuver around things and say, oh, well, that's cool, but maybe if you tuned it this would engage with people better from a educational point of view. And it started going. So when I started the podcast, it was funny, but like I was trying to really figure out things, and then I got to do the World of Pencil stuff. And then
I remember that.
And that's when I was really going. Like I remember with Cam Rackham, and he was like, "Bro, I hear you like the Gorillas. I have backstage passes with Jamie Hewlett, the artist for the Gorillas. He's all, come and hang out with us tonight." And I was like, "Nah," because we were with my dad. And I just remember thinking like, why the fuck didn't I do more? And there was one artist who told me like, you need to stop working with them because you're taking from artists because they profit off of other people's work by selling t-shirts. And I was in a real conundrum because I was like, fuck, dude, like I really have built Brushes of Doom to be like, it's me. People always thought it was a company, but I was like, no, it's me. I wanted to give free education to people who wanted it that couldn't access it like I couldn't back in my hometown. And I think the hard part about that was I felt like this person is not leading me astray. And of course, like I cut off a lot of opportunities for years. And then here I am, like I haven't kept up with the podcast consistently because you've seen the path from fucking Oregon to here to there and then now where we're at. And now there's a podcast everywhere. You throw a fucking quarter, you're going to hit 50 of them. Yeah. And you have people who are doing it way better, this and that. And the funny thing is like, I don't regret anything. I don't ever care to be popular, bigger that. You were one of the biggest proponents, like, of the pod. Like, you were listening to it, and I think that's what also helps stabilize with some of your artists. Not my pod, but you were very active in the shop when I would guest spot, where we're listening to a podcast. We're learning together. You've always been very interactive with people's education. And I remember how I was like, the first time I was like, you want to be on the podcast? Oh, I don't know. It was like, fucking just do it, dude. And here we are years later, and I still do it because I care about people having something to learn from, like a genuine place. And I feel like with tattooing, it's the same thing. You and I, when there was no money, and there is no money still, I never questioned, how am I going to find another way? It's like, I got to work harder. I think both of our wives can absolutely agree that it is very hard. Like I was talking to Des when we got the coffee earlier, from the perspective of them as well as other people, how they assume things are. It's like they see us the least out of almost everybody because we're always busy, and it only gets busier, whether it's your time, your effort, your opinion, whatever it is. And then on top of that, the further you are away from your home, your shop, things start to slow down because the momentum of you is not there. And that becomes an imbalance you try to correct, so it's such a weird place to be in time where like I'm glad because I've never given a shit about being famous or popular. And that's where I think you and I have become great friends, is because you like attention when it comes to work, not because you need it, because like you like the rush of like holding yourself accountable. And some people on the other spectrum from YouTube and this and that, from the Daniel Silva shit, they see it as like, I'm going to get famous. I'm going to get this. And they go into it for the wrong reasons. And it perpetuates this really imbalance. I won't say toxic, because I think there is a lot of good that's come from competition, but it creates an imbalance in people's understanding of how to get better. And so like, the fact of the matter is like, I love that here we are, fuck dude, what, 12 years later, 13 years later?
I think so.
And we're still sitting with each other. We were young men, fucking bitter to the world, fucking beaten down and full of anxiety and pressure. And we're sitting down, having the skill that we've wanted to an extent, and being like, but it could be fucking better. And you have a wonderful wife. I have a wonderful wife. We have great friends. We have great places. And we never saw ourselves as shop owners. We've always been like, I don't give a shit. I just want a tattoo. Now that we're shop owners, I'm all, why? Why did I fucking do this?
Yeah, it's such a huge responsibility. And I that's like another like doubling back to what I was saying earlier is like mentoring, having a shop. It should be a responsibility. It shouldn't just be for like, I want to be a business owner.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be like that now. It's not like things are changing. They've already changed. Like people are just gonna have shops and they're gonna be okay, and then they're gonna be a business owner because they want to be a business owner, not because they're trying to give anything back to the community or give anything back to their town's community or the tattoo industry. They're just gonna do it just because like that's what the book said. I read a book about business and it said to own your own business or whatever, and it's like, so you not only bought the lifestyle, you bought the book, and then you created a system that probably that person that wrote the book is going to profit from, so that you can be a consumer of what they're selling, not only their words, their lifestyle, but their products too. And so like people need to be aware of what's happening, because
absolutely
it's a huge responsibility.
It is, and people don't want to acknowledge that. And that's why I say it's to me it is funny that I still love doing this shit. Like right now, it's like, oh, another podcast. It's like, bitch, I was here when the magic was written.
Nah, it's fun though. I mean, remember, we talk all the time anyways whenever we hang out, and it's just like, it's pretty natural. It's just, we've had similar experiences and we've been around the same timeline. So, the conversations just roll out. It's like, you might as well put a mic in front of it. You know what I mean?
But I think when I started, I literally was the same thing. I was showing Morgan because she knows the Brushes of Doom stuff from the podcast point of view. Good old Susan Sanzu, my wife, is probably one of the best people who has ever voiced it, because she works with media, she works with design, and she helps with her company. And one of the funny things she pointed out to me, she goes, "You know what's crazy? People know you as X from Sacred 8. They don't know you as Brushes of Doom." They don't see the 13, 14 years that has maintained it and the name that keeps this shop open. They only see what they know because they've only been around for 2-3 years. So in Morgan, we were talking about something, and she goes, "Yeah, I've never seen any of the other videos. I have the European invitationals. I have the fucking American invitationals, and then like the exposés I did with Treckle. There's a whole bunch of people that don't know that stuff, and it's like, that's fine. If someone finds that shit, that's cool. I hope it inspires you, but it's not there to jerk myself off. I want you to look at that person and be like, I can do that too." The fact that...
Do you, I know you as your first name. I don't know, you never put your name out there, but no. In my phone, I just, like, I have you saved from, like, because I've had the same number. It's just your first name and then Art Painter. Because that's how I needed to remember, like, he's like,
because there's so many of my names out there.
So it's like funny, like, because I remember when it became Brushes of Doom.
Yeah,
and
you couldn't put Brushes of Big Dick or anything. Thanks, Joseph.
But yeah, it is crazy to like know that, because I feel, well, hopefully that kind of happens to me too. Like, I mean, that's part of the process and part of branding. Like people started calling me like Cabello instead of like Joseph, or like Tenacious was in high school, and like it evolves, but like you can tell like who's around recently based off of like
for the longest time in my phone you were Joseph Barboso, because it corrected it to Barboso, and I was just like, it's good enough. But I mean, like, we've known each other for so long, and I've loved the fact that we have grown up with each other as artists and as men, because I think that's the thing too. We come from backgrounds where you're not allowed to be vulnerable. You're not allowed to be soft, and you sure as fuck better not be fucking talking about anything that makes you weak. And like as we get older, I'm like, wait a minute, this is gay. I wasn't gay for feeling feelings. That's gay for not feeling feelings. And I think that is where, as humans, it's nice to see how we are still friends and still students. Like, how many people I know have come up to you and be like, "Oh my God, it's the Cabello," and I'm over here, and like even my wife goes like, "Man, we have enough people to just be a nonprofit and just why don't you just make a cult now?" So doom. But truthfully, people put you on this pedestal, and you're like, "Bro, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing sometimes. I'm trying to figure it out." And
I don't even know if I'm put on a pedestal or not, but it's just like that is an honest answer that I give people. Yeah, because even recently with like portraits, I feel like I hit a stride, and I just changed everything that I did. Like I have a certain wash system that I've been using for like 10 years. Right. I have a certain way that I dissect a portrait, and that's kind of why Xander's been so successful, because like
he has the best of
he has
Cabello.
Well, like it's weird how things transition too in mindset, because before it was just like, oh, I'm going to work or I do tattoos, and now I'm starting to look at like this accumulation of knowledge. I think it was like only maybe like 5 months ago where I started calling this like, this is my work. Like almost like, it sounds like weird to me, but it's like, this is my work. This is like my life's work, is the portrait, like the perfect portrait. Right. And I just got exposed to like more information, and it's like, okay, now it opened up even more. But because of this work that I've been developing through like other knowledge from different courses or other theories like Lanny's book, I was able to like, that's why Xander was successful, was because I was like, okay, I have these principles, I have this way that I can apply it to the craft of tattooing and to the mechanics of tattooing, and let me see if this kid that doesn't know how to draw period can take these like engineered techniques where it's just like all the fat is trimmed, right. All the bullshit is out, and it's just like, this is it. If you have the discipline to like sit and do this for 100 of hours, like you'll be good. And it's like, okay, now I'm gonna like, I have to like scoot him along, you know. But he was able to get there, and it's like, oh shit, this shit works. Like this is something that I've been studying, and I've taken little bits from everywhere, and I have this thing that's not mine quite yet. It's not like a full on tree that bears fruit, but like it's getting there. It's like a sapling that's developing, and it's gaining a characteristic of its own, and I can hopefully contribute it one day. I'm not quite ready, so like when people are like, oh, do a seminar, or oh, like tell me what you're doing, it's not ready yet. And but I'm not even thinking like I don't need a peak yet, because I feel like artists have like they'll hit a peak and they get a run, you know, and like it's just momentum, you know, like it just happens, you know. Every artist is going to have their time if they put enough work. And what I'm doing is I'm planning even further out. Like I've been tattooing 16 years, so I'm like, okay, I'm 34. If I do 4 more years, I'll be 37, and I'll be at 20 years. And then hopefully by 40, that will be 23 years. I think at 40 to like 45, I'll have to use whatever I've learned, and then I can finally like express myself. You know, I'll know the language enough to really like as long as I'm healthy and my body can like put up with it. Yeah. Then I'll have something that's developed enough to like really put out and really like tried and true. Like Horiyoshi 3 was saying, like, if you don't know what a tattoo is going to look like in 6 years, you're not a tattooer. Like you don't understand what this is. You don't know what's happening. You're just you're doing something, but you're not quite there. And like, I need that time so that in this time I can produce the work that I know I can be capable of. So I'm in a weird process right now where it's like a transitionary area, and like I'm just in the time chamber, the hyperbolic time chamber, just getting the drills in, getting the reps in, getting the time in, seeing pieces come back, trying to get this 1-pass portrait to look like a 2-pass portrait. And it's like, I went from having like a 5-pass portrait to like a 4 to a 3. Right. Now I'm down to a 2, and I can pretty much guess how the skin's going to heal, and how it's going to look. Refine it. Yeah. And the second one, it's pretty close to complete, because a portrait can only go so far to where it's like, you're either going to overdo it depending on the skin tone and like, depending on how it ages. But you know, the perfect portrait, I feel like, from what I'm capable with the time that I have here on earth and with the time that I've been able to utilize, like it's only going to get to a certain spot, and that's like the realization. So for me, I'm looking at the time, I feel like it's quantifiable. I can look at what I've measured from where I started and see where I'm at now, and it's like, okay, now we have to set up for when I hit the next decade. Like it needs to be at this point, otherwise I didn't reach my goal of what I originally started at.
So when you're 45, because Des makes a lot of like her own stuff, I can't wait to get the Jessica Cabello Stanley Cup and beer koozie.
That would be sick.
See, I have the mindset of like why I have my seminar coming up, right? And I call my book that I'm writing, because I'm writing my own stuff about how I see art, the grief notes. I was really pondering one day when I was talking to my best friend about it, and he was like, well, like, what was it like having to be, because he remembers everything I went through with like my past relationships, my family, and so forth, and just my own stupid bullshit with myself. And he was like, what was it like during those years you were just living by yourself in that shop? Like you never had a break. And I was like, I kept writing things down of like what I needed to work on, and then my notes and my stuff and my journals of just like theory, because that's all I could do to like numb the fucking dumb shit. Because I've never drank, I've never done a drug or smoked. So when people are like, how do you deal without alcohol? I don't fucking know. I've never had any, so it's just
it's like raw dog, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all, whoop, whoop. I was like, I don't know, dude. They're like grief notes, and that clicked in my head. And the only reason why I don't have a problem with the seminar stuff from my point of view is because I always think back to a Joe Rogan podcast he had with Henry Rollins. The first one he ever did with him, the singer from Black Flag, was such a fucking phenomenal one, because he asked Joe Rogan, like, what are you doing in December? And he goes, oh man, fuck it. I think it's like in February they're talking. He goes, my daughters want to go to Disneyland, and it's going to be beautiful. We're going to do this, and yeah, we're just going to have a good time. And he goes, that's crazy. And he goes, you ever realize that we are the 1%? Like, in almost 99% of the world, people have no concept that they expect to live, and that wake up, find food, find clean water, don't get raped, killed, or eaten, and then do it all again tomorrow. He goes, the audacity to assume you're going to make it to next year is unquantifiable, which is funny because it's like the opposite, right? And he goes, if you do what you think you can do now, what will you learn to improve what you think you should be doing then? And I think I approach things where I'm like, I'm going to do this seminar because I have enough that I feel is legitimate to help people to an extent, right? If there's a master at level 5, I feel like I'm at a 2, where I have enough to get you to level 3, and then level 3 to 5 is on you, baby. And because of that, it's like I don't expect, like I the opening line of my fucking goddamn seminar is like, do you see yourself as a tattooer who can do art, or an artist who is a tattooer? What are you putting in your time? And I said, like, my family goes one of two ways on both sides. They either die of cancer or they die of a heart attack. I will undoubtedly, honestly, no joke, I will die of cancer or I will die of a heart attack. And if I'm super fucking cool, I'll get them both. You know what I mean? That's fucking A+, baby. And that being said, is who knows when that'll happen. My dad lived longer than almost anybody, and my mom's going younger than almost anybody in her family. And I can't expect that in 10 years I'll have an opportunity. So I would rather do something now with the years I've had, and then when I learn from that, refine it for next year. Not because I need to be sold or bought or marketed, but it's there to help that person grow, because like you are with Samara, I want to see that with Morgan. I want to see that with my wife. I want to see it with my friends, where I see them grow, and I'm like, I'm so fucking proud of you, dude. Because how many years have we put into this already that you're going to be as irrelevant as the next person, because the new generation needs flashy, quick, and fast. And they need thematic shops. I mean, look at me. Right? But I am very honest about it. I want nerds coming in here, but anyone's welcome. But I don't care if you're an all male, female shop, if you're a safe space, not safe space. Do good work and be a good person. But if you want to learn, there's a difference between a tattooer and a tattoo artist in my eyes. Yeah. I respect all forms of it, but I respond only to one better. And that's where I think for you in the competition realm, that's where I feel like I root for you the most. I will fucking break your balls all the fucking time. Oh, look at Mr. fucking good guy. But it's out of love. Yeah. Because if anybody in our world was going to be in a competitive state where I feel like people make tattooing to be they make it to be like the puppy bowl. Isn't this cute and cool? And it disregards a lot of what we've really worked for. I'd rather have you in that corner who's like, cool, man, well, how did you do it? Let me learn you, young blood. you're the right person to be in that world because you respect the craft, as I'm sure there's many others. But there is that small niche of people that's growing every fucking generation of just dickheads who have no caliber. When you started getting into the fucking competitions, you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Where did you start and why did it pique you? Because you had told me off mic, you don't mind winning, but you love when you lose too. And I think people have to hear that.
Yeah, dude, I fucking love losing. Because, I don't know, I'm fucking sick. And I think it's just like, I don't want to like get too like spiritual or anything, but like this journey is not like, you gotta like love all aspects of like this journey of, we're not here that long. And if you're only like experiencing one, I want to experience all sides of it, you know? And like, I love losing because it's a part of that. And like, it gets you just as much of an endorphin rush as winning. It's just a different type of feeling. And like, I was like really into like listening to a lot of self-help books and listening to David Goggins. And it's like, I think some of that kind of like traveled into my mindset too. And like understanding like, being honest with myself is like, did I do every single thing to make sure that this tattoo looks as good as possible? Not just like, okay, like do the tattoo right and set up, break down. Like, did I spend like a month coming up with a design or did I spend 30 minutes? Right. Then did I photo bash and make the design and then just tattoo it? Or did I photo bash, make the design, draw it once, draw it twice, draw it 3 times, draw it 4 times, and on paper, just over and over and over. And then when it's time to like actually put your big boots on and like you have a 6-hour time period, you're going to go into this competition like, okay, I've already done this tattoo 7 times. It's not fun anymore. This is like a different thing that if you're here just to like have fun, that's awesome. That's great. I'm not here for that. Like, I'm here to like do as much as I can to make sure that this comes out as beautiful or as technically sound as possible. And I'm not making any guesses when I'm there. I've already figured out my shapes. I've already figured out my family, the values. Right. Like, I've already figured everything out. It's not a test run. It's like I did, like if you're writing an essay and you did all your rough drafts and then this is the final form, you know? Right. And like nobody sees that. They just see the picture. Right. And then it's off. And like,
you're there to execute, not explore.
Yeah. You know? And even with art, like, that's why I said, like, I guess I am an artist. I am creative, but I do look at myself as more of like an artisan or a craftsman or like a tattooer because of that. I'm not really trying to explore myself emotionally through my art. You know, there's other ways that I do that, and I'm not really, I don't have that emotional attachment to my artwork. And for what my goal is, as far as like the lifespan of my tattooing, there's no real place for that anymore. Like, I'm not sitting here and like, I'll do a cool tattoo and I appreciate it, and then it's like, I'm a tattooer, I'm on to the next one. The next day I got to show up and do it again, and then do it again and do it again. But I'm also like studying to make sure that it is better, not just like one thing every single time. Right. So like, it's more of like a technician rather than like somebody that's like going in and like they're having this whole experience. And I think that's great, and there's a place for that. It's just not what I do. So, and even with information, I don't know what I should do with that either. Like, cause I'll tell people, I'll be very honest. Like, I just watched the Franco Vescovi DVD like over and over and over. I basically have that shit memorized. I've seen that shit so many times, like too many times probably than I would like to admit. And then I watched the David Vega live streams over and over and over. Right. Like a lot. And then, you know, I took his seminar, and then I have my book, and then I use those things from the book, but it changes. Like I'm changing. So if I tell you what I'm doing now, it's going to change. So I don't know, like for you've been doing color for so long, and the way that you explain colors, like, has helped me a ton. It's helped me like learn things like with tattooing. Like, it's helped me even like understanding like ink and paper and stuff like that. It just, I don't think what I have to say is as consistent as it should be. Whereas like you've been pretty consistent because that's your field of expertise, I feel like, and
I need to be more,
it's provable, and it's like I can see you do it.
This is paper, and they're all, wow.
That's me pretty much. Holy shit, that's impressive.
Thank you for the $300.
No, but I mean, and I think you're ready for it. I think like what you do is gonna help people not only with tattooing, but with if they choose to do watercolor or acrylic. Because like you've taught me stuff, like things that I didn't even know. It's like I'm like
I remember where you were like doing this on your canvas and you're doing that, and I'm all Joseph. Yeah, I'm all the brush goes this way. You're all, No, I appreciate the words, man. Like honestly, from my perspective, I've always said that I like when going like to your competition stuff, right? You are a person that like you're in like a music capacity. You would be a great guy who
karaoke.
Yeah, you would sing in a band. You would absolutely be phenomenal as a front stage guy because you don't just care about the music, you can present it. I'm the guy in the back where like why I love drums or anything else. I'm okay with being a tech. I don't really care if anyone knows who I am, my name, or sees anything. I care that they get the best possible quality of something and they appreciate it. But I'd rather see the person in the crowd who's like, I wish I could play that. And it's like, come on up here, motherfucker, and help that person because I genuinely love that portion of it. But from the perspective of my seminar, or the way I teach, I'm like, you've helped me with value as I've helped you with color. And the crazy thing is that every time we teach each other something, it's always like, motherfucker. All right, that's cool because you know it. But again, it's the do you comprehend versus the context. You just posted a video of that fucking rapper that sounds like a starting Studebaker car, Mexican OT.
Oh, yeah.
That dude, you did a phenomenal fucking portrait. I think it's gorgeous. And it shows your work from Vega, from everything where you've gotten, especially in the jowl area and especially in the teeth and the eyebrows. You've shown how much you've learned about rounding your shapes and your value around those areas. And then the idea of simplifying depth. I don't need 50 fucking caps to just get this. Where's your light? Where's your value? Where's your depth? Simple. And then you posted a video that your client showed him it. And like to see somebody really love your work and be like, man, that's great. And another artist and people loving your work in general. But to see the actual person who's like, that's a tattoo of them. And look at that. And the first thing out of this motherfucker's mouth was, who did that? Joseph Cabello, fucking hometown boy.
Cabello did that shit.
Cabello did that shit, man. And in my head, like, that's where you were talking earlier. When you really love and respect somebody, man, fuck that fool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm proud of you as a brother and as a peer because you've worked your ass off to the point where, like, let's be honest, that could have been like a certain portrait that we had seen earlier from somebody that how did I say this the other day? Like, there was a guy that came from Modesto who was like, bro, you have some of the sickest script around. I have some nice script.
Your lettering's tight.
Thank you. And
that shit is hard.
Yeah, I go, thanks. My mom says it's nice. But I mean, like, the thing is, like, the guy's like, it's super nice, and it's so fucking clean. It was just very simple, 3 tight liner, nothing out of the ordinary, in my opinion. But the guy's from Modesto. Anything's clean. I'm not saying there's not good artists, but there's a lot more scratchers out there than there are actual artists. But there are some amazing artists out there. I think a lot of the Valley gets that sometimes. Yeah. So from their perspective, they don't have that literacy to be like, this is average, you know, but it's clean. And like, so that Mexican OT, am I saying it right?
Yeah, the Mexican OT.
I think for him, any portrait of him is like, dude, that's dope. But you can tell from an artist's point of view where homie does this and it's like a fucking wolf to meet and he circles it and he's like, and he's looking, he's really taking the time because
that shit makes impressed. Me nervous right now. Just
yeah, but it's true. He's sizing it up. Yeah. Homie's got tattoos, and I think that's what I appreciate about you as a competitive guy, because you don't look at it as like, I'm here to fucking beat you. You're here to really put what I think the new generation doesn't understand. I talk about this to a lot of like people who want to ask for advice or whatever, but it's like, would you, like, if you really want to know who you are as a tattoo artist or an artist in general, would you collect your own work?
Yeah.
If you went to a fucking
at the price that you want,
at the price that you want, yeah. Would you go to a fucking a trade show if you are painting something? Would you go to an art show and be like, "Fuck yeah, I'd pay that for that thing"?
That's important.
If you don't, you're not doing it right.
Yeah,
100%. And the fact that you go ahead and you show your stuff, if you're not willing to do that, why the fuck would you do it permanently? And the other thing that fucking finds it so interesting in my head is where people are like, "Hey man, would you paint my grandmother? She passed away. I don't really do a lot of like portrait paintings, man, but I can try it out. Would you tattoo me? Fuck yeah, Playboy." They get this weird sense of confidence around a stencil, right? Like, so you're a good renderer, but you're not a good artist. That's cool to an extent, because take away that stencil, what you got. And I feel like that's where you've improved the most as an artist and as an academic, is like you see where you've I mean, shout out to fucking our brother Tony that's not here at the moment, Tony Wynn, but how that dude has this fucking awesome, not even joking, a notebook that's about this thick that he's taken every single seminar, and it's just plethoras of things. And where he's just like, oh, this one and this one. And my favorite quote he's told me, I added in that video that I had posted a few weeks back. He goes, "What do you know on paper that I don't know on skin? Like, where are you at and where am I at, and what can you show me?" And I really love that perspective, because his whole point is like, dude, you're not supposed to be the same artist in 10 years. My value has changed from meeting you and Christian Casas, where my lightest drop was a 1 for the longest time. And I saw a portrait I did 10 years ago, and that shit was gone. Luckily, after all the years of drawing, the guy was like, "You said free touch-ups for life." And
they definitely remember.
Oh yeah, fucking that. They don't remember to fucking pay you, but they remember when they need free shit. And he had the original reference, and I had to freehand it because I still had the markers from the eyes and the nose and stuff, and it came out nice. Way more in depth. I had a lot more understanding of facial structure and saturation and so forth, and open skin tone. So when I did that Freddy Krueger one I just did, my lightest tone in there is a 7 drop, and I have a 7 drop, 50%, and like Casas calls it a cap. It's literally a solid black cap with 4 drops of water, because it immediately kills the full saturation. And then I have black and triple black. Simple, all hand control, and that comes from Tony. If you can't do it with black, you ain't gonna do it with anything else.
Yeah, and that's like super important, the hand control. It's like same with like graffiti and having hand control, or like it being a pin or pinstriper, and like having that those like microfibers, quick twitch, whatever people call it. But I mean people have been asking me too, like my setup is pretty basic. It's just 5 caps. You got like 100%, which I use Pantera Triple X, and then I have 75, a 50, a 25, and a 10%. So like doesn't matter the cap size. And then what I did, instead of just doing drops every time, which I'll do if I'm traveling, I'll just I'll make pre-washes. I'll just like, I don't even like measure it. I just like kind of eyeball it.
Your formula at that point.
And like if the 10%'s a little dark, it's okay, because I feel like it's gonna age a little bit better.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's nothing. It's just like, it's very like, because I went through, when I was apprenticing, I got to watch 3 portrait artists, or well, technically 4. So we had Twist, DeNavo, Jose Martinez, and then Tony Ramirez, and all of them were doing portraits, and they all had different setups. They had different cap systems, and then I got to watch like what they used as far as their needle groupings, and then I ended up like putting that together for mine. And then when I went to Hollywood Stars, Eric had his systems, and then he knew a bunch of drop systems from like the guys from Lowrider, or like then I meet people like Rick Reyes from Ink Fatuation when he was apprenticing at that time. Then he had his approaches, and so it's like you could do anything, but I found that having the 5 value system is pretty teachable, but you could do it with just black and water, as long as you know how to like I think Franco says it's every time you dip, it's about 10% ish. So it's like, it just kind of becomes time consuming. So the process, I think, can be streamlined with the 5 caps, because it just seems like it's gonna cut that time down.
Yeah. And the other thing too is the idea of how our setups change. Like I remember having So when I first was learning, it was like you had to have a 1 drop, a 3 drop,
break the skin open.
Break the skin open. Oh my God. My first mentor was like, you're never going to use more than a 7 mag. To anyone that is just watching from an artistic point of view and doesn't know what that is, think about the width of a pen, like the tip of a pen, and the actual plastic tip. So you can probably see that right there, but like this tip, that is bigger than a fucking 7. And then going on someone's back and just taking water and witch hazel and just
breaking it all open,
and then having to shove in the ink, and just the time it would be. And like I remember portraits back in the day would be like, yeah, the first session's 250, the second session, third. And it wasn't until one day meeting Tony, and Tony was like, why the fuck?
One pass.
Yeah, one pass. What are you doing wasting time?
Black as shit.
Yep. Dark as shit. It was almost like purposely blackface. You're like, what the fuck is that? But it would come back. And I've seen it 15 years down the line, and they're still gorgeous, you know? And I feel like that is where the hard part about it is, like you said it perfect with Xander, right? I call it because Morgan's mentor, Brett, had asked me about if I would put in my seminar a section about mentors versus students. What are the best points of view I think that need to be talked about? And I talk about something called the pioneer versus the buccaneer. And the pioneer is a person who has been on the road and tries to settle down. So they spend years building the cabin and fucking farming and doing anything to create a homestead. Then they have a kid, and that kid has only ever known stability. And that stability, they're already leagues ahead of what this person does. They may not have the same experiences, but the children yearn for the mines. They long to go out to the sea or out into the woods. They need to explore because they've never seen the world. And the sad part about it is that motherfucker's going to live an extremely tough life until they eventually settle down and have to do theirs, and so forth and so on and so on. So like, you know, the reality of a true master in my head from a student's point of view is to understand that you will work your entire life to get great at one real good thing or aspect of your art. And that's not necessarily like, oh, I'm good at pens. No, it's like a culmination of stuff that you've packaged. And that is the next stepping stone in the fucking staircase to eventual like perfection, right? That never gets reached. Hopefully. And that's what people perceive as a master, is a student that's reached their time, not their limit. And wherever you fit, that's where you go, and that's where it's going to be. And the system I use now is a 725 and 750 and a cap, which is full all the way to 4 drops, and then 2 taps of black. That's it. That's literally it. And I've found way better results. And in 5-6 years, I'm going to get bored of that, and I'm going to try something new, because you're going to try to get better. What do you have going on right now? We could keep going and going and going, but we got the wives here, and I'm actually kind of hungry. But also is I want people, because I want people to actually get to know you better by just talking to you, checking out Body Art Gallery, checking out Body Art, Cabello Art TV, all that stuff. And I want to see you back here when we have the other boys here, like originally we did before they abandoned us. But I want people in general to always be able to, like, because we can go on for days about it. Because
I got way more right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Go.
Mexican OT, holla at your boy. But that's the thing.
Shout out Swag, by the way. Augie Pedroza, thank you for that ad lib. He's the man behind the voice.
I'm gonna do a parody of it.
Do it, dude. I want everyone to start using ad libs, because that's the only thing I have to contribute at this point. It's like once I start hearing other tattooers with ad libs, I'm like, dude, I'm the only one that I know of that has one.
I'm gonna start making producer tags just for it.
That would be sick, dude.
But
even more important than the perfect portrait.
Yeah, exactly.
Tattooer ad
what
libs.
did you do with your life? I made some dope ass drops. What about your work? Well, I mean, did you hear the drops?
Yeah. I
Drop
make
system.
sweats too. So.
I also have these really nice beer koozies that my wife made.
Hell yeah.
They come 4 in a pack. But first and foremost, man, like, hey, just thank you for making the time. You flew out from Vegas, spent the time with your wife to come down and hang out and everything. Mm-hmm. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Love you and appreciate you, man, for all the years that we've been fucking friends. I'm not going to say love you. Fucking look at homophobe. Homophobe.
Now we've been, the last couple of years are wild, man. We've both been through
See
some
how
stuff.
you won't say it? Look at this.
No, I do. I love you. I love you too. But just are we wrapping up right now? Is that what's happening? Okay, so before I tell you I love you again.
Okay, sure.
Again. Yeah, I think me or you agreed to like come help me do a seminar or whatever. Yeah. But if like the shop is a welcoming place, like I definitely, if you're an artist, like come by. Yeah, I've had a couple people like say like it was intimidating. Like I'm chilling. Like I work every day. I work 7 days a week. Like there should be better balance. I don't really have it right now, but like come through and kick it, because like that's what I do. Like if you want to have time with like. That's what it is, and I'm not like hiding anything right now. I'm using like the David Vega wash set, so like it's obviously different than what I've been working on for 6 years. But hit me in the DMs. I'll share whatever I got. I'll send you all the videos I like to watch. Whatever. I'm super down.
Frozen 2.
It's just a little dog, the little winter dog playing a bunch of drops and shit. But yeah, it's not that big a deal. You know, I am serious about my work, but I'm also like it's cool. Like come through.
You're business casual is what they call it.
Yeah, like a mullet.
Yeah, you are. Mm-hmm. Fucking partying.
Con pa peso.
Hey. No, man. I definitely hit up Joseph, hit up Samara, hit up Michaela, Xander. Is there anyone
and
else?
then Jordan too. I think it's Bleed Ink. He's the new guy at the shop, but he's killing it. And he's been working on portraits too, and he's just been really disciplined. His pencil drawings are coming out good. His tattoos are looking better. So yeah, we're all chill. So come by. And the Central Valley is a small place. People can be assholes, but we try to not be dicks, because I hated when I would go to shots and people were just fucking pieces of shit to me. So I try not to do that to people.
No, you don't at all. You guys are very welcoming, and I think like especially because like Des is usually helping with people as well, and like you said, great rapport. Mm-hmm. It's a good reflection. It's the same thing that we do here, right?
Yeah, they might end up hating me and be like, "You want to go to Chili's?" I gotta go home. I'm like, "Nah, man, we're tattooers. We're friends."
Yeah, exactly. You said that I could come to you for anything. I'm here for chicken tenders. Nah, but I feel like that is the thing. Like it's a very welcoming environment, and it's your home, because your tattoo studio is your home. We're here more than we are home. Is a reflection of who you are and who your crew is. And albeit that it is something that is always evolving and growing, I do think that is something that people don't hear enough about. Is in today's culture of the tattoo world, it's cooler to have a moniker of, look at all the cool things I do, and look at all what's the 5 worst tattoos that are red flags. Like it's cooler to be a performer and a influencer than it is to be influenced or to be a student. And to be honest, to those who keep doing that, when the shit hits the fan, as it always does in every profession because of the seasons or because of this or that, all that will be left are those who really love the craft.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I think, well, this is a conversation I've had at the shop, but we were watching the Steve-O podcast, and what's that guy that has the bowl cut? He's like a DJ.
Oh, are you talking about
Oliver Tree?
Yeah, he's from Santa Cruz.
Okay, so they were having a conversation about clowns, and like, I just went in this deep ass rabbit hole about clowns and like understanding clown like lore and what clowns are, and that's not clown like how people fucking clown, you know, like an asshole. Yeah. But like, that's why I kind of pulled back, because I'm like, am I a fucking clown? It's like I'm over here fucking juggling, and like I think people that are going to create content, you need to understand like what you're doing and like how you're presenting yourself, and if that's something that you want, like, are you there to entertain, are you there to educate, and what is the reason why, you know? Like, I feel like you're trying to push the culture forward, you're trying to push like the industry forward, and you're trying to welcome the new people in that want to respect the craft. And I think that's something that, rather than just like moving in a direction without any like conscience behind it, like think about that stuff. And like I went a little too crazy with the clown thinking, but I definitely don't want to like present myself as a clown.
Do I or do I not put blackface to not be whiteface? I'm like, oh. No, I agree. I mean, like for me, I sum up why I do Brushes of Doom. Brushes of Doom. If the day I die, and hopefully soon, because I'm tired of this earth, you have an ability to look at my life for the past 15 years. If you listen from episode 1 in my bedroom, where I was talking to Steven and my buddy Kenny, all the way to now, you can hear what it was like for me after I came back from LA. You can hear what it was like when I was starting to get better and busier, really popping off with painting, meeting the fucking love of my life, losing my dad, going through changes after losing the house in Oregon, and then finding that I wanted to work for myself and really bet on me versus being part of something else that at the time really wasn't pushing me. You have a complete journal of my life, and these aren't interviews. These are conversations with people I respect and want to learn from, and you actually are hearing what my life is like from my point of view, from the people I care about the most. And the content that we call it now versus me, where I just think of me just having like, again, like journals or internal thoughts. If you've ever wondered what it's like to like look through someone's eyes, my channel, my work is literally from, that's why I don't like showing
documentation.
Myself. It's a documentary of what I see through my eyes and how beautiful I see everyone else. Because no matter how much I tear you down and joke around and make some fucked up shit, like if I spend more than 5 minutes with you, then I'm glad to have somebody that makes me forget who the fuck I've been for 10 minutes. And I think when people are making you stuff, whether it be art, content, whatever, what are you leaving behind for the next generation? Like I said, the pioneer versus the buccaneer. The person that eventually you will become, that develops the home and the place that you will grow for the next generation to go off. What kind of home are you building? You know, and what are you leaving there to help that person grow into their new place? Where can people find you? Where's the shop at? Where are all your Instagrams, your social medias?
Instagram is jcabelloart_BAG. And then I have my website, www.jcabelloart.com. And then I have YouTube, Cabello Art TV. Hopefully, I think it's something that I want to do. I want to like re-get into that. So keep an eye on it, subscribe. So then when the time comes, you know, you're there to see it. And then Tulare, California.
Hey.
Nah, I mean, we got it, dude. Home of Richard Torres. Heavyweight champion right there, baby.
Thank you, brother, for coming out. Des, even though you're not on mic, thank you, hon. We appreciate and love you guys.
Yeah, dude, love you too, man.
Oh, there it is. I said hey! Okay, sold. To anyone else that wants to go ahead and see anything from Joseph, Des, Samara, Michaela, Xander, and Jordan.
J-Rock.
Over at Bag, Get the Bag, which I love, the double entendre for Body Art Gallery. Definitely go collect. Check out some stuff. Collect from each one of these artists. Support, learn, and also learn from his page from where he's at, because for a lot of you that do listen, I know there's quite a few of you. My wife got to meet one of my mentors, Mike, and I feel that you're on that level for me as well, as a brother and as a mentor and a peer. If you want to know what makes me tick, go to the people that help make that tick happen, and that's Joseph and his crew. So be sure to keep up to date with all things at brushesofdoom.com. I will have all the links and stuff to Joseph's stuff. You are going to listen to this on either your podcast stuff and or on YouTube, where you can watch it for free, and we will see you guys later.
Cabello did that shit, huh?
It's actually Brushes of